Chapter 3404. Back to the slaughtering heaven territory. Zhuowen went to Phoenix Blood City, and the news he received made him very disappointed. Great Clan Elder Mu Yu and Third Clan Elder An Yang were indeed dead. They were killed by the Saintess of the Demon Region. It was said that they had offended the Saintess of the Demon Region, and that was why they were killed. Zhuowen knew that there was no clue about Mu Chunxue's death. At this moment, he could only go to the old site of the Heavenly Armor Star where Great Elder Mu Yu and the others had visited. Perhaps he could find some clues there. It's time to leave the great desolate heaven territory. Zhuowen left the Phoenix Blood City, heading to the Devouring Clan's territory. He remembered clearly that the mysterious passage connecting the great desolate heaven territory and the Xian Mi heaven territory wasn't far from the Devouring Clan's territory. If he wanted to use that passage to leave the great desolate heaven territory, he had to go through the Devouring Clan. If he went to the Devouring Clan, he could set up a stronger formation for the Devouring Clan. No matter what, he had used the identity of a member of the Devouring Clan to travel in the great desolate heaven territory. Moreover, he had stirred up a lot of trouble. He was afraid that the Sorcerer Clan would find the Devouring Clan. If the Devouring Clan didn't have a strong formation, they would be done for. A figure was sitting cross-legged on the city wall of the Devouring Clan's main city. His eyes were resolute as he was cultivating. Many young members of the Devouring Clan in the tribe showed their respect and admiration when they saw him. Wuyo Diegi is so strong, but he's still working hard. We have to work harder. We can't be lazy in our cultivation. Wuyo Diegi said that he would lead the Devouring Clan back to the peak. He's working hard for our clan. We should contribute to our clan. We have to work harder. Many juniors of the Devouring Clan were encouraged when they saw Wuyo's back. They had made up their minds to cultivate harder to revive the Devouring Clan. Wuyo, long time no see. You've progressed fast. You're at the half-step creator realm now. While Secludeless was cultivating, a slightly mocking voice came from behind him. Shocked, Secludeless opened his eyes and quickly turned around, throwing a punch behind him. But very quickly, Secludeless discovered that his right fist seemed to have hit a wave, and he could not help but retreat. Only then did he clearly see the true face of the figure that appeared in front of him, and his pupils abruptly shrank. Lord Zhuowen. Secludeless was shocked, but soon, he revealed a look of ecstasy. He knelt on one knee and cupped his fists towards Zhuowen. His eyes were full of excitement as he said in a deep voice, Secludeless greets Lord Zhuowen. Get up. I can see that your aura is vigorous, and your aura is as vast as the sea. You've probably already broken through to the God of Creation stage, right? Zhuowen said with a smile. Master Zhuowen, I have indeed attempted to break through to the God of Creation stage twice, but I failed both times. Take this bottle of Genesis pills. The next time you break through, use the Genesis pills. Then you will be able to break through smoothly. It's impossible to fail. Zhuowen took out a jade bottle and handed it to Secludeless. Secludeless took the jade bottle and thanked Zhuowen excitedly. Take me to see Yu Lu first, said Zhuowen. Secludeless naturally didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly led Zhuowen to the main hall of the main city. When Yu Lu saw Zhuowen, his face flushed with excitement. Zhuowen chatted with him for a while, then told him his next plan. When Yu Lu heard that Zhuowen planned to leave the primitive heavenly domain, his eyes dimmed. At the same time, when he knew that Zhuowen was Long Wen, he felt as if he had been hit hard. Although he had guessed it earlier, Zhuowen had personally confirmed it. He was still shaken to the core. However, after confirming that Zhuowen was Long Wen, Yu Lu supported Zhuowen's decision to leave the primitive heavenly domain. Although the rumor had it that Long Wen had self-detonated, what Zhuowen had done was too big. If he stayed in the primitive heavenly domain, there was a big possibility that he would be exposed. In the next 10 days, Zhuowen arranged more than 10 grand formations around the Devouring Clan's territory. Zhuowen's formation skills had improved a lot. After all, he had been studying the true alchemy array record. His alchemy Dao and array Dao were always in a state of improvement. After arranging the grand formations, Zhuowen bid farewell to Yu Lu and Secludeless, leaving the Devouring Clan's territory. He came to the Golden Prairie where he had been teleported. He found the original location and quietly sensed the remnant aura of the teleportation here. He began to collect the aura of the teleportation and began to arrange the teleportation formation here. He was helpless. That Black King was too unreliable. He had teleported him to the wrong place, but he hadn't even given him a way to contact him. If he wanted to go back, he couldn't contact the Black King, let alone ask the Black King to teleport him back. Fortunately, he was a transcending heaven-grade divine array master. He could deduce the path of the teleportation from the original location. Then, he could use the array Dao to reconnect with the path of the teleportation and return. It took Zhuowen 10 days and 10 nights to deduce the path of the teleportation. After all, it had been a long time since the teleportation. The traces of the teleportation were faint, which made it difficult for Zhuowen to deduce. Fortunately, he didn't fail his mission. Eventually, he found the path of the teleportation and set up a stable teleportation formation here. Setting up the teleportation formation was fast. After 15 minutes, Zhuowen activated the teleportation formation and disappeared from the Golden Prairie. When Zhuowen opened his eyes, he found himself in a dense forest covered in black mist. At the same time, this dense forest was filled with sharp and powerful sword energy. The sword energy was like a hidden weapon that could easily cut a creature's body and smash it into powder. However, when the sword energy fell on Zhuowen's body, it emitted the sound of metal clashing. Unexpectedly, it couldn't leave a single mark on Zhuowen's body. Seems like I've returned to the Forbidden Dead Mountain. Zhuowen's eyes were strange. When he had left the Slaughter Heavenly Domain, he had used the Forbidden Dead Mountain to leave. Now that he had returned, he had actually returned to the Forbidden Dead Mountain. However, the sword energy that had troubled him back then was not worth mentioning to him now. It couldn't even tickle him. "Human, it's you." Suddenly, a familiar voice attracted Zhuowen's attention. Zhuowen looked over and saw a golden mouse. At the same time, beside the golden mouse was an exotic beast with the head of a tiger and the body of a human. In addition to these two exotic beasts, there were two other exotic beasts whose auras were no weaker than these two. These two exotic beasts were the dog-headed man and the Minotaur. These four exotic beasts' auras were very powerful. They were actually at the mid-level of the Master of Heaven level. Zhuowen looked at the golden mouse and the tiger-headed exotic beast with a surprised expression. This was because he wasn't unfamiliar with these two exotic beasts. They were actually two of the 7 Master of Heaven-level exotic beasts that had pursued him after he had obtained the Candle Dragon Jiu Worm in the Forbidden Dead Mountain. He remembered that the golden mouse was called Devouring Gold, and the tiger-headed exotic beast was called Stone Tiger. The other two exotic beasts were also two of the 7 Master of Heaven-level exotic beasts that had pursued him back then. At this moment, when the 4 exotic beasts saw Zhuowen, they were first shocked, then wild joy and violence appeared on their faces. Zhuowen's eyes were calm. He turned to look at the 4 exotic beasts and said indifferently, "You've come at the right time. I'm not very familiar with the Forbidden Dead Mountain and don't know the way out, so I can ask you guys. Haha, is there something wrong with your head? I think it's better for you to ask the King of Hell about this kind of question." Chapter 3405. Meeting the Golden Rat again. The moment the Golden Rat made its move, the other 3 exotic beasts, led by the tiger head and human body, all wore mocking smiles on their faces as they looked at Zhuowen calmly. Back then, when Zhuowen was in the Forbidden Death Mountain range, they clearly remembered that this human was chased by them like a stray dog. If it weren't for the fact that he had injured the Golden Rat with Hu Yi's divine arrow, he wouldn't have been a match for any of them. Ever since Gold Devourer was injured by this human, he had a fortuitous encounter. He swallowed a heaven and earth treasure and his cultivation base increased rapidly. He has reached the peak of the middle stage of the Tongtian Master Realm and is not far from the late stage of the Tongtian Master Realm. This human is dead for sure. The tiger-headed human-bodied stone tiger grinned coldly. He, I heard that this human obtained the secret of the altar. If Gold Devourer kills this human, he might just take away his corpse. We have to be careful. The Minotaur sneered and winked at the dog-headed stone tiger. Shehu and the dog-headed man naturally understood. They chuckled and instantly spread out, surrounding Zhuowen in 2 different directions. Zhuo naturally noticed the actions of Shi Hu and the other two strange beasts, and the corners of his mouth curled up. It was very cold and carried a trace of disdain. Boom! At this moment, the golden rat had already arrived in front of him. Blazing golden light burst out, overflowing with colorful lights. The aura of the golden rat also rose sharply, reaching the peak of the middle stage of the Tongtian Master Realm in an instant. A powerful aura swept around the golden rat like a storm. Come, tremble. Even if you kneel before me now, it's useless because I will still tear you apart and destroy you. Then I will take everything from you. Haha, this is the price you have to pay for your despicable sneak attack on me. The golden rat was very proud. It suddenly struck out with its right claw. Golden light overflowed and soared into the sky. The golden light condensed into a huge claw and slapped down at Zhuowen's head. This claw was too terrifying. It was as if it could blast all matter into nothingness and annihilate them into powder. Zhuowen was very calm. He stood where he was and slowly reached out with his right hand, turning it into the shape of a palm. It was very gentle and very leisurely as it reached out towards the incoming claw. Keek, you're courting death. When the golden rat saw Zhuowen being so arrogant, it laughed even louder. It immediately increased the strength in its hands, and the golden light became even more dazzling. It was as if it could cover the entire sky, making it a dazzling sight. Boom! The claws of the golden rat finally came into contact with Zhuowen's palm, upon which an unprecedentedly terrifying light erupted. Then, the golden rat's expression changed because its claws stopped advancing the moment they touched Zhuowen's palm. Then, countless cracks appeared on his palm. Rumble! The golden palm exploded, and Zhuowen's palm shot out like lightning, landing on the chest of the golden rat. The golden rat screamed in agony. Its chest had been punctured, and golden blood splattered in the air. It was a mournful and eerie sight. How? How is this possible? You're actually so powerful? The golden rat spat out a mouthful of blood and stared at Zhuowen with incredulity in its eyes. Back when it was chasing after Zhuowen in the Forbidden Mountain area, it had suffered at the hands of Zhuowen, but that was only because Zhuowen had used his final trump card. Furthermore, Zhuowen was in a very sorry state at that time, and he had only managed to injure it after expending a tremendous amount of effort. After the golden rat escaped that calamity, it had obtained a fortuitous encounter, and its cultivation base had increased by another level. It had almost become a tyrant in the Forbidden Mountain area. This time, it was very confident that this human would definitely die when it encountered him again. This was because it was no longer what it used to be, and this human was still alive. However, it did not expect this human to be even more terrifying. He had improved even more than it had, and he had severely wounded it with just one strike. This was a completely one-sided battle. You'd better ask the King of Hell about this question. Zhuowen's eyes were still calm, as if defeating this golden rat did not give him much of a sense of accomplishment. It was very normal. Seeing Zhuowen's expression, the golden rat's eyes were filled with humiliation. It had never been looked down upon like this before. It was as if it was a piece of trash that was not cared about at all. Human, even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. The golden rat roared, and then a terrifying golden light burst out from its body. Immediately after, a terrifying explosion swept over and instantly enveloped Zhuowen. The stone tiger and the other two exotic beasts, who were originally surrounding the golden rat, were all in disbelief when they saw that it had been severely wounded with just one strike. Then, they were shocked and terrified. Only then did they realize that the human who had been chased by them back then had actually become so powerful and terrifying. However, they soon realized that when the golden rat self-destructed, their expressions changed drastically, and they immediately retreated. Boom! The explosion set off a terrifying shockwave that swept out. The three exotic beasts, who had just retreated, were immediately affected by the shockwave and were sent flying. Red blood flowed out of the corners of their mouths, and their faces were pale and bloodless. They looked very unsightly. I really didn't expect that Gold Devourer would choose to self-destruct. He had a high chance of advancing to the late stage of the Sky-Reaching Master. It was also unexpected that he would self-destruct just like that. The Tauren suppressed his injuries and muttered to himself. That human is too powerful. Gold Devourer will definitely die. It's understandable that he chose to self-destruct because he was unwilling to accept it. But this human, under such a terrifying self-destruction, I'm afraid he's dead for sure. The dog-headed man frowned slightly and said with some displeasure. He knew that this human had once obtained the secret of the altar. Now that Gold Devourer had self-destructed, his body and soul had been destroyed, and all the secrets had been turned into dust. What a pity. The stone tiger also felt a little regretful. He naturally did not feel sorry for Zhuowen's death, but for the secret that Zhuowen had obtained from the altar to be scattered with the wind. What are you feeling sorry for? A cold voice came from the core of the explosion. Immediately after, a figure slowly walked out of the explosion's golden light. The stone tiger's body stiffened and his eyes widened. He immediately saw the figure walking out of the explosion leisurely. Human. Human. You're not dead. The stone tiger rubbed his eyes, thinking that he had seen wrongly. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was crystal clear, as if it had been carved out of the most perfect jade. He slowly walked over, and the aura on his body was as vast as the sea. The surrounding explosive energy blasted onto Zhuowen's body, but it didn't leave a single mark on his jade-like body. Zhuowen's Pangu sacred body had reached the peak of the 8-star level. His body was absolutely terrifying and unparalleled. It was incredible. Chapter 3406. Fury Run. The instant Zhuowen walked out leisurely from the explosion site, the faces of She Hu and the other two beasts became extremely unsightly, and they all fled at the same time. Do you think you can escape? Zhuowen sneered and took a step forward. The air exploded, and the terrifying space-time force spread out. Instantly, the surrounding space was sealed, and the terrifying sword qi that filled the surroundings also stopped moving, floating in the air as if it was still. The three beasts that were originally fleeing were immediately affected by the sealed space, and their speed of escape became extremely slow. Zhuowen slowly walked over in the air, condensing sky-splitting blades in each of his hands, and threw them at the dog-headed man and the Minotaur. The dog-headed man and Minotaur only had time to scream before their entire bodies were cut open by the sky-splitting blades. Their bodies and souls were destroyed, and they couldn't be more dead. She Hu's face became pale, and cold sweat flowed down from his forehead. He looked at Zhuowen, who slowly walked over, and his entire body trembled. He knelt on the ground with a plop and begged for mercy. "Sir, spare my life. She Hu is willing to be your ox or horse, and will do anything for you." She Hu abandoned his dignity and knelt on the ground to beg for mercy. He had spent too much time and effort to cultivate to his current level, and it was really not worth it to die like this. "I just said, I'm not very familiar with the Forbidden Death Mountain area, and I need someone to lead the way for me. I didn't want to make a move at first, but you guys attacked me without saying anything, and wanted to harm me. I had no choice but to make a move." Zhuowen came to She Hu's side and shook his head, looking as if he expected better from She Hu. She Hu looked at Zhuowen's appearance and cursed in his heart. "You decisively killed the golden mouse. Which part of you is asking for directions?" Of course, She Hu naturally didn't dare to say this. He hurriedly said with a fawning smile, "Sir is right, it's our fault for not understanding the situation. I'm willing to lead the way for you, sir. I'm very familiar with the Forbidden Death Mountain area. It would have been great if the three of them had been as sensible as you. Otherwise, such a bloody incident wouldn't have happened. I'm not an unreasonable person." Sigh. Zhuowen shook his head and said helplessly. After he finished speaking, he removed the shackles on the surrounding space-time. She Hu instantly felt his body lighten, and he regained complete freedom of movement. However, She Hu did not dare to run away. He stood obediently by Zhuowen's side, lowering his head and not daring to make the slightest fuss. "Lead the way. As long as you bring me out of the Forbidden Death Mountain range, I will set you free." "I won't touch you," Zhuowen said indifferently. She Hu was pleasantly surprised. After hurriedly assuring Zhuowen, he led Zhuowen in a certain direction in the Forbidden Death Mountain range. When Zhuowen entered the Forbidden Death Mountain range, he walked all the way up, but he knew that going up the mountain was easier than going down. He was currently at the top of the Forbidden Death Mountain range. If he wanted to leave this forbidden death mountain range, he definitely could not find the right way out. This Shi, who was a creature of the forbidden death mountain range. He was definitely more familiar with the forbidden death mountain range than him. Shi Hu indeed did not disappoint Zhuowen. Under Shi Hu's lead, Zhuowen successfully found the exit of the forbidden death mountain range. However, at the exit of the forbidden death mountain range, there was a stone tablet erected. This stone tablet contained terrifying sword chi energy. Only by blocking the attack blasted out by the stone tablet could he successfully leave the forbidden death mountain range. With Zhuowen's current strength, it was simply too easy for him to block the sword chi attack blasted out by the stone tablet. Hence, he passed through the exit very smoothly. Shi Hu looked at the figure that disappeared at the exit and let out a light sigh. He muttered to himself, finally sent this malefic star away. Shi Hu wanted to cry but had no tears. He felt that every time he encountered this human, nothing good would happen. The last time was like that. This time was also like that. He decided that as long as he saw this human in the future, he would immediately run away and never dare to have any crooked ideas again. After leaving the Forbidden Death Mountain range, Zhuowen flew towards Hongxian God City based on his memory. He had already left the Massacre Heavenly region for a period of time. He wondered how Mai Ying and Mai Shu were doing. This time, he intended to help them leave the Massacre Heavenly region and return to the primitive Heavenly region. After all, he had already prepared a teleportation array when he entered the Massacre Heavenly region. However, the teleportation array was in the Forbidden Death Mountain range. As long as he could find Mai Ying and Mai Shu, entering the Forbidden Death Mountain range would not be a problem. As Zhuowen gradually approached Hongxian God City, he saw a figure in front of him. This figure was in a sorry state. He was covered in wounds as though he was being chased. Behind this figure, there were also several figures. These figures were filled with killing intent. It was obvious that they were the ones who were chasing after this person. Originally, Zhuowen did not intend to meddle in other people's business. However, when he saw the figure covered in wounds, he had no choice but to interfere. This was because this figure was the guardian of Hongxian God City, Ying Jie. He was the second most powerful person in Hongxian God City, second only to Mai Ying. However, Ying Jie was being chased until he was half dead. The injuries on his body were too severe. It seemed as though he would die at any moment. Lord Zhuowen, why are you here? Guardian Ying Jie, who was running for his life, saw Zhuowen. When he saw Zhuowen's face, he could not help but stop in his tracks. His face was filled with surprise and curiosity. Ying Jie, go to hell. Seeing that Ying Jie had stopped moving, the several figures that were chasing after Ying Jie all launched fatal attacks. The terrifying attacks were directed at Ying Jie. At the same time, they also enveloped Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. These people did not even ask him and actually attacked him. This was a little too much. Zhuowen snorted coldly and waved his sleeve. Streams of energy burst out. The figures did not even have the ability to resist and were directly pierced through by the streams of energy. They screamed miserably and died without a doubt. Zhuowen did not care about the figures that he had killed. He looked at Ying Jie and asked, Guardian Ying Jie, what is going on? Why are you being chased? These people seem to be from the human race. Are they from the Quiet Sun Divine City? Speaking of the Quiet Sun Divine City, Zhuowen felt a little strange. The city lord of the Quiet Sun Divine City, Qi Gaoming, and the Array Dao Divine Master, Zhu Shuwei, were both his followers. They should not be messing around. Why would they send people to kill Ying Jie? Lord Zhuowen, you are really back. This is great. I beg you to save our city lord and Miss Mai Shu. Ying Jie was very emotional. He actually knelt down. Protector Ying Jie, please get up first and tell me what exactly happened. I just returned to the Massacre Celestial Domain. I have no idea what happened. Zhuowen was still confused. Ying Jie calmed down and began to narrate everything that had happened in the Massacre Celestial Domain. Chapter 3407. Mai Shu in distress. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with rage, and his expression was extremely unfriendly. After listening to Ying Jie's explanation, Zhuo Wen learned about everything that had happened in the massacre heavenly domain after he had left. It turned out that after he entered the forbidden Death Mountain range, Mai Ying, Qi Gaoming, and Zhu Xiuwei returned one after another. Mai Ying returned to the Dark Rock Divine City. This divine city was personally conquered by Zhuowen and was temporarily managed by Mai Ying. As for Mai Ying's Hongxian Divine City, it was jointly managed by Great Guardian Ying Jie and Mai Shu. Qi Gaoming and Zhu Xiuwei returned to the Quiet Sun Divine City. After a few days, an earth-shattering cry came from the Forbidden Death Mountain range. It completely stirred up the entire Massacre Heavenly region and attracted the attention of all living beings in the Massacre Heavenly region. Everyone knew that it was the Mountain Soul's cry from the Forbidden Death Mountain range. When the Mountain Soul's cry resounded, it meant that someone had broken through the Forbidden Death Mountain range and left the Massacre Heavenly region. This was because the Purple Star Sovereign had left the Massacre Heavenly region the last time the Mountain Soul's cry sounded. It was no exception this time. Most of the living beings in the Massacre Heavenly region knew why the Mountain Soul's cry sounded. They knew that Immortal Master Zhuo had successfully left the Massacre Heavenly region. Mai Ying, who was overseeing the Dark Rock Divine City, and Mai Shu, who was in Hongxian Divine City, were overjoyed when they heard the Mountain Soul's cry. They knew that Zhuowen had successfully left the Massacre Heavenly region. They were happy, disappointed, and melancholy at the same time. Qi Gaoming and Zhu Xiuwei, who were in the Quiet Sun Divine City, were shocked. However, they quickly regained their composure and sneered coldly. They began to cultivate in seclusion. Initially, the Massacre Heavenly region was peaceful. However, when Qi Gaoming and Zhu Xiuwei came out of seclusion, the situation in the Massacre Heavenly region changed. With the help of Zhuo Wen's divine pills, Qi Gaoming had successfully broken through to the mid-stage of Heaven Ascension Master. Zhu Xiuwei, on the other hand, had also obtained the experience of Earth Array Dao from Zhuo Wen and had finally broken through to the Heaven Ascension Master level. After the two of them came out of seclusion, they immediately provoked Mai Ying, who was in Dark Rock Divine City. They thought that they were Zhuowen's followers, and the Dark Rock Divine City was conquered by Zhuowen. Who was Mai Ying? How could he be qualified to guard the Dark Rock Divine City and claim that he wanted to take it back? Mai Ying was infuriated. He reprimanded Qi Gaoming for his treachery and defiance of Zhuowen's will. Unfortunately, Mai Ying's words did not have any effect on Qi Gaoming. Instead, Qi Gaoming made a false accusation against him. As for Qi Gaoming, he led his army and began to attack Dark Rock Divine City. Mai Ying had also obtained Zhuowen's divine pill, so her cultivation had also advanced to the middle stage of the Heavenly Master realm, and her strength was even above Qi Gaoming's. However, Qi Gaoming was not alone. He had Zhu Xiuwei, a heaven-reaching formation master, by his side. When the two armies clashed, Dark Rock Divine City was utterly defeated. With the help of Qi Gaoming's powerful formation Dao, the army of Dark Rock Divine City was completely crushed. Even though Mai Ying managed to completely suppress Qi Gaoming in the battle, he was eventually lured into the Heaven Pass level killing formation that Zhu Xiuwei had set up beforehand by Qi Gaoming. Mai Ying was no match for the killing formation's might, and Qi Gaoming managed to find a flaw in it and captured him alive. In the end, Qi Gaoming completely conquered the Dark Rock Divine City, and Mai Ying was imprisoned by him in secret. After Qi Gaoming conquered the Dark Rock Divine City, he immediately announced that Mai Ying was treacherous. She had occupied two divine cities and wanted to rule the entire Massacre Heavenly domain. She had wild ambitions and she deserved to be punished. Qi Gaoming declared that in order to stop Mai Ying's faction's ambitions, he planned to conquer Mai Ying's headquarters, Hongxian Divine City, to stop the evil intentions of Mai Ying's faction. The living beings of the Massacre Heavenly domain were not stupid. They knew that the one who wanted to rule the Massacre Heavenly domain was not Mai Ying, but Qi Gaoming himself. However, Qi Gaoming controlled two divine cities, countless armies, and his own powerful strength. He also had the support of a heaven-reaching formation master. He was already invincible in the entire Massacre Heavenly domain. Even though the living beings of the Massacre Heavenly domain knew that Qi Gaoming was ambitious, they did not dare to show it. Most of them were just bystanders. Even though the Hongxian God City's foundation was much stronger than the Dark Rock Divine City, the only heaven-piercing master expert, Mai Ying, had already been captured alive by Qi Gaoming. Naturally, the Hongxian God City wasn't a match for Qi Gaoming's army and was easily defeated. After Qi Gaoming's army charged into Hongxian Divine City, they massacred everyone in the city, regardless of whether they were old or weak. After a bloody battle, Ying Jie finally broke through the encirclement and escaped Hongxian Divine City. However, there were still a few experts in Qi Gaoming's army who chased after him. If he had not coincidentally met Shuo Wen, Ying Jie's final ending would have been to be caught up by these experts and killed. His ending would have been very miserable. Is Qi Gaoming in Hongxian Divine City? Zhuo Wen suppressed his anger and asked Ying Jie. Ying Jie sighed and said, Lord Shuo, Qi Gaoming is still in Dark Rock Divine City. The one leading the army is Zhu Shuowei. How is Miss Mai Shu? Zhuo Wen continued to ask. Mai Shu was not strong and had a pure and kind nature. Zhuo Wen was worried that Mai Shu would be hurt in this battle. Miss Mai Shu was captured by Zhu Shuowei. I was unable to protect Miss Mai Shu. I am ashamed. Ying Jie lowered his head and said in shame. This has nothing to do with you. Zhu Shuowei's array Dao is very strong. You won't be able to break through it. Since Mai Shu was captured by him, you won't be able to save her. Now, follow me to Hongxian Divine City. Qi Gaoming and Zhu Shuowei are really something. They actually did this when I wasn't around. This is really out of my expectations. Zhuo Wen looked in the direction of Hongxian Divine City and narrowed his eyes. Terrifying killing intent burst out uncontrollably from his body. Ying Jie, who was standing behind Zhuo Wen, felt the terrifying killing intent coming from Zhuo Wen. His body trembled, but soon, his eyes were filled with excitement. He knew how powerful Zhuo Wen was. He believed that with Zhuo Wen's strength, saving Mai Shu and Mai Ying shouldn't be a problem. His only concern was whether it was Qi Gaoming or Zhu Shuowei. Both of them had huge armies under their control. After all, Zhuo Wen was alone. Would he be a match for such a huge army? In Hongxian Divine City, in the City Lord's Hall, Zhu Shuowei looked down at Mai Shu, whose limbs were tied up. Zhu Shuowei sized Mai Shu up and grinned. Miss Mai Shu, I remember that you have a close relationship with our Lord Shuo. Before Lord Shuo left, he must have given you a lot of good things. Now, hand them over. Those are Lord Shuo's things, not yours. Zhu Shuowei shamelessly spread his hands at Mai Shu, intending to forcefully take the things that Zhuo Wen had given to Mai Shu. Chapter 3408. Zhu Shuowei was scared out of his wits. Zhu Shuowei sneered, Miss Mai Shu, I've been very polite to you. I'm giving you face by asking for Master Zhuo's things. If you don't want to give me face, that's fine too. There are still many captives in the Castellan mansion and I'll kill one every 2 hours. Until you agree to my position. Zhu Shuowei snorted in his heart. He had investigated and found out that Zhuo Wen had given Mai Shu a lot of Crimson Moon Starwave milk. That was a heaven-level divine herb, extremely precious. He had searched Mai Shu's body and did not find any Crimson Moon Starwave milk in her spiritual ring. He knew that Mai Shu had hidden the Crimson Moon Starwave milk. Sure enough, Mai Shu's body trembled when she heard Zhu Shuowei's threat. Her watery eyes were filled with tears as if she was about to cry. Zhu Shuowei looked at Mai Shu in silence and smiled. Miss Mai Shu, it seems that in your heart, the people in the Castellan mansion can't even compare to the Crimson Moon Starwave milk. With that, Zhu Shuowei waved his hand. Immediately, his subordinates brought in a disheveled figure from outside. Like Mai Shu, this figure's limbs were tied up and his face was filled with fear. Kill him, Zhu Shuowei said without hesitation. His men were meticulous in their work. They held a large blade and slashed down. The figure did not even struggle before his head was separated from his body and his divine soul dissipated. This is the first one. Miss Mai Shu, we're not in a hurry. There are many people in the Castellan mansion. Killing one in 2 hours is enough for many days. Take your time and think about it. There's no need to rush. Zhu Shuowei laughed happily when he saw Mai Shu lying on the ground in fear. No. Zhu Shuowei, I beg you to let them go. I'll tell you where the Crimson Moon Starwave milk is kept. My Shu pleaded. Haha, that's right. Save me the trouble. Tell me, as long as you tell me, I won't let the people in the Castellan mansion suffer, Zhu Xiuwei said with his eyes lit up. There is a passageway under the bed in my room. It leads to a secret room. The Scarlet Moon Starwave milk that Big Brother Zhua gave me is in that secret room, Mai Shu said weakly as her head drooped. Zhu Xiuwei was proud as he ordered Mai Shu's men. Soon, his men returned. They there and their men and Mai Shu, there was indeed a secret room under Mai Shu. And they, there, 3 jade bottles. When Zhu Xiuwei received the 3 jade bottles, he first opened the cork of one of the jade bottles. Instantly, an extremely dense medicinal power gushed out. Furthermore, it was accompanied by multicolored light that instantly filled the entire hall. As is translation. And is translation. Is translation of translation. Is translation. The moment they smelled the fragrance, they felt as if their internal organs had been reborn. It was too comfortable. Zhu Xiuwei immediately closed the bottle stopper and opened the other 2 jade bottles one after another. They were also gushing with multicolored light, and the medicinal efficacy was astonishing. He knew that he had struck it rich. He had obtained 3 bottles of the Crimson Moon Starwave milk. Every drop of the Crimson Moon Starwave milk was priceless. The value of 3 bottles of the Crimson Moon Starwave milk was immeasurable. Everyone in the main hall found it hard to calm down. When they smelled the fragrance, they knew that the thing in the jade bottle was extremely beneficial to them. It could allow them to rapidly advance. However, they did not dare to act rashly as Zhu Xiuwei was their leader. He was a divine array master with a high status. None of you are allowed to tell anyone about the Crimson Moon Starwave milk. If anyone dares to, I'll make them wish they were dead. Of course, I'll give each of you a drop of the Crimson Moon Starwave milk as a reward for keeping it a secret. Zhu Xiuwei looked at everyone in the main hall with hostility. They nodded and did not dare to disobey Zhu Xiuwei. When Mai Shu saw that Zhu Xiuwei had obtained the 3 jade bottles, she quickly said, Zhu Xiuwei, now that you've obtained the items, shouldn't you let the people of the Castellan mansion go? Zhu Xiuwei glanced at Mai Shu and chuckled, let them go? Young Mistress Mai Shu, you're too naive. Qi Gaoming has already given the order to kill everyone in Hongxian Divine City except for you. No one is to be spared. Since Qi Gaoming has given the order, how would I dare to disobey it? Am I right? Mai Shu's body stiffened. She looked at Zhu Xiuwei in disbelief and said, Are you going to break your promise? Miss Mai Shu, you're mocking me. I didn't break my promise. I said that I won't let your people suffer. I'll make them die a painful death. Didn't you understand what I meant? But it doesn't matter. Now you should understand what I meant. Zhu Xiuwei revealed a cunning smile. Zhu Xiuwei, you'll die a horrible death. Mai Shu was so angry that her body trembled. Her beautiful eyes were filled with helplessness. Unfortunately, Zhu Xiuwei didn't care about Mai Shu's feelings. He gave the order to kill everyone in the city lord's mansion. The subordinates in the main hall received the order and walked out of the main hall. They were ready to kill all the people who were tied up outside the main hall. However, as soon as these subordinates walked out of the main hall, a terrifying and vast energy swept over and smashed down fiercely. Instantly, these subordinates were annihilated into powder before they could even let out a scream. Zhu Xiuwei's face changed slightly. He sat up on the main seat and looked at the main hall's entrance with an ugly expression. He could vaguely see 2 figures walking over slowly. Who are you? Zhu Xiuwei's body trembled. The attack just now was too terrifying. It gave him a feeling that he couldn't reach them. Zhu Xiuwei knew that the 2 of them must be experts. They might even be stronger than Qi Gaoming. He was cautious and puzzled. Since when did Qi Gaoming and Mai Ying, who were foreign experts, appear in the Massacre Heavenly Domain? Zhu Xiuwei, I just left the Massacre Heavenly Domain and you can't recognize me. A cold voice resounded in the main hall. It was as loud as a bell and it echoed in the main hall. Zhu Shui's eyes narrowed when he heard the voice. He couldn't believe it. He pointed at the figure in front of him and said, "You. Are you?" At this moment, the two figures had completely entered the main hall. Zhu Shui finally saw their faces. Zhu Shui was very familiar with one of the figures. It was the protector of Hongshen City, Ying Jie. When Zhu Shui saw Ying Jie and the black-clothed youth, he fell to the ground as though he had seen a ghost. Chapter 3409. I'm back. Haha, Zhu Shui, you have a good memory. You still remember me, Zhuowen said sarcastically. At this moment, Zhu Shui was frightened. He subconsciously trembled all over. Back then, the deterrence that Zhuowen brought to him was too great. Even now, he was still somewhat affected. That was why he was so shocked when he saw Zhuowen. But soon, Zhu Shui thought of something and calmed down. He took out an array flag and threw it out. Then, he formed a seal with both hands. Instantly, the aura of the entire hall changed. A terrifying killing intent filled the entire hall. Battle cries and the neighs of war horses resounded in the hall. The hall was filled with the stench of blood and decay. Ying Jie, who was standing beside Zhuowen, immediately paled when he sensed the terrifying murderous aura around him. He looked nervous, and the terrifying murderous aura made it hard for him to breathe. The moment the array in the hall was activated, Zhu Shui grabbed Mai Shu, whose limbs were tied up, and quickly retreated out of the array's range. Mai Shu's eyes were filled with joy when she saw Zhuowen. But soon, her joy was replaced by worry. She knew that there was a heaven-piercing array set up by Zhu Shui in the hall. Although she knew that Zhuowen was also a heaven-piercing array master, it would take him a long time to break the array. By that time, Zhu Shui would have gathered all the experts in Hongshen Divine City to encircle and kill Zhuowen. Zhu Shui held Mai Shu and stood outside the array. He looked at Zhuowen with a gloomy face and said, "Lord Shui, didn't you leave the massacre heavenly domain? Why are you here?" Zhuowen looked calm and said, "I just returned from the primitive heavenly domain." "Why? Zhu Shui, don't you welcome me?" Zhu Shui's eyes flickered. He laughed dryly and said, "If you are really Lord Shui, I, Zhu Shui, will naturally welcome you. After all, I am Lord Shui's follower. But you're a fake." Everyone knew that once they left the slaughter heavenly realm, it was basically impossible to come back. Lord Shui has already left the massacre sky region. There's no way he can return. You must be the imposter that Ying Jie found, right? But unfortunately, if you want to deceive me, that's just wishful thinking. Zhu Shui spoke very bluntly, as if he was certain that Zhuowen was an imposter. "Zhu Shui, you're twisting the truth. This isn't a fake, his master Zhuo. Back then, Lord Zhuo promoted you and imparted his knowledge of formations to you, allowing you to break through to the heavenly ascension level. Now that you see Lord Zhuo again, is this how you slander him?" Ying Jie, who was standing beside Zhuowen, pointed at Zhu Shui and reprimanded him. However, Zhu Shui sneered and said, "Bullshit Zhuowen. Do you think that you can fool me by finding a fake? How laughable. Since you dared to come here and walk right into my trap, then all of you can die." As he spoke, Zhu Shui formed a seal with both hands. Immediately, the killing formation in the main hall began to operate. In an instant, a terrifying killing energy burst out, forming a blood-red storm that blasted onto Zhuowen and Ying Jie. "No." Mai Shu's beautiful eyes widened as she cried out in grief. However, Zhu Shui laughed, a cruel laugh. But soon, Zhu Shui felt that something was wrong. This was because he realized that the formation in front of him was trembling violently. Then, he saw that the formation in front of him was like broken glass, with cracks appearing on its surface. Crack. The formation shattered and was annihilated into nothingness. Then, Zhuowen walked out slowly with Ying Jie, looking very calm. "Zhu Shui, you've really matured. Your array Dao has improved a lot, but your brain hasn't," Zhuowen said calmly as he walked over. However, to Zhu Shui's ears, it sounded like the whispers of the Grim Reaper. Zhu Shui rushed out of the main hall with Mai Shu in his arms. "Guards, there's an enemy attack." Zhu Xiuwei shouted for help as he rushed out of the main hall, attracting the attention of many cultivators in Hongxian Divine City. Not good, Immortal Master Zhu is in danger. Let's go. Many cultivators in Hongxian Divine City took out their divine weapons and leaped towards Zhu Xiuwei in an attempt to protect him. Unfortunately, just as they moved, Zhu Xiuwei suddenly covered his head with both hands and let go of my Shu, who was being held hostage, with a blood-curdling scream. The moment Zhu Xiuwei let go of my Shu, a black-robed youth walked over slowly and caught my Shu. At the same time, the black-robed youth grabbed Zhu Xiuwei with his right hand. It's so painful. Please let me go. Zhu Xiuwei screamed in pain as he covered his head with his hands. His spiritual soul was being destroyed by some kind of energy, and his spiritual soul had turned into a pile of mush. Zhuo Wen's gaze was calm. His soul was far more powerful than Zhu Xiuwei's. When Zhu Xiuwei was fleeing, he had used the power of his soul to condense an attack and blasted it into Zhu Xiuwei's soul, resulting in Zhu Xiuwei's current state. Of course, Zhuowen didn't use his spiritual soul sword intent. It was just an ordinary spiritual soul attack, which was very crude. The spiritual soul sword intent was too strong, and it was overkill to deal with Zhu Xiuwei. Moreover, even if he had used his spiritual soul sword intent, Zhu Xiuwei would have died on the spot, and he wouldn't have had the chance to struggle. Thief, let go of Immortal Master Zhu. How dare you hold Immortal Master Zhu hostage? You're courting death. At this moment, the cultivators of Hongxian God City had already rushed over. Their attacks landed on Zhuo Wen's body in a myriad of colors. Unfortunately, these attacks were all blocked by the creation mysterious light the moment they landed on Zhuo Wen's body. They couldn't hurt Zhuo Wen at all. Zhuo Wen casually sent out a palm, and an incomparably huge energy palm descended from the sky. The hundreds of experts at the front were instantly blown to smithereens. This attack completely stunned all the cultivators in Hongxian Divine City. They stood frozen on the spot as if they had been petrified. He had killed hundreds of cultivators with a single palm, and they were all third-step Dao validation experts. It was too terrifying to kill them just like that. Is there anyone else who wants to die? I don't mind throwing out a few more palms. Zhuowen looked calm as he spoke leisurely. The crowd responded to Zhuowen by retreating collectively. They looked at Zhuowen in fear, and no one dared to step forward. What a joke. He could easily kill hundreds of cultivators with a single palm. They were still weak, and they would be cannon fodder if they went forward. I'm Zhuowen from back then, and I've returned to the Massacre Celestial Region. Qi Gaoming and Zhu Xiuwei were my followers back then, but they were very disobedient. They acted recklessly when I wasn't around, and they broke the balance of the Massacre Celestial Region, causing many bloodshed. Today, I, Zhuowen, have returned to bring peace to the Massacre Celestial Region. Now, I, Zhuowen, want Hongxian Divine City. Those who don't agree can leave Hongxian Divine City. Those who agree, Hongxian Divine City is also willing to accept you. Chapter 34 Tend Uneasiness. It can't be. It's Zhuowen, the immortal Master Zhuo. He's a ruthless man. He even killed the City Lord of Dark Rock Divine City and forced the other two City Lords to submit to him. He's a legend. Is that true? I remember that immortal Master Zhuo left the Slaughter Heaven domain through the Forbidden Death Mountain range. The cry of the mountain soul was heard throughout the entire Slaughter Heaven domain. How could he still be in the Slaughter Heaven domain? Who cares? He's too ruthless and powerful. I don't think Qi Gaoming is a match for him. We'd better not provoke him. All the cultivators in Hongxian Divine City were in a heated discussion. Most of them were suspicious of Zhuowen's identity. Most of them had only heard of Zhuowen's name and had never seen Zhuowen before. Therefore, they were suspicious of Zhuowen's identity. However, the terrifying strength that Zhuowen displayed earlier thoroughly convinced them. They did not care whether this person was the real Zhuowen or not. In any case, he was too powerful and was not an existence that they could casually offend. They only needed to know that. Although most of the cultivators in Hongxian Divine City were in a heated discussion, no one left Hongxian Divine City. Although Zhuowen seemed magnanimous, they didn't dare to disagree with Zhuowen. That would be openly going against this expert. The hundreds of cultivators who were killed by a single palm strike were the clearest examples. Zhuowen was satisfied with the reactions of most of the cultivators in Hongxian Divine City. Then, his gaze fell on Zhu Shuowei, who was in his hand. At this moment, Zhu Shuowei's eyes had turned white and he was foaming at the mouth. He was delirious. His divine soul was a mess and his body was severely injured. He was in a half-dead state. Zhuowen didn't kill Zhu Shuowei directly. Instead, he threw him to Ying Jie and let him imprison him. Then, he released the shackles on Mai Shu. After the shackles on Mai Shu's body were released, she threw herself into Zhuowen's arms and wept. Zhuowen felt a little awkward. Mai Shu possessed the powerful nine-tailed fox bloodline. Not only was she talented, but she was also extremely beautiful. Especially the women of the nine-tailed fox clan. Their figures were extremely beautiful and charming. When Mai Shu threw herself into Zhuowen's arms, Zhuowen was almost affected. His breathing became a little hurried. Mai Shu blushed when she felt Zhuowen's rapid breathing, but she didn't leave Zhuowen's embrace. She knew very well that the nine-tailed fox clan's ability to seduce people was extremely strong. Even if she didn't deliberately seduce people, her usual words and actions were mixed with an unusual charm. During this period of time, she had been living in fear. She often thought of Zhuowen and felt wronged. Now that she saw the person she had been thinking about day and night, the grievances in her heart suddenly exploded. Naturally, she could not help herself. Zhuowen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could feel Mai Shu's unusual attitude towards him, but he felt helpless. His heart already belonged to someone else. Naturally, he couldn't place any other feelings on Mai Shu. Moreover, his feelings for Mai Shu had always been that of an older brother to a younger sister. He had never thought about other feelings. Many cultivators in Hongxian Divine City saw this scene and quickly turned their faces away. They didn't dare to look casually. They discussed animatedly. They seemed to understand why this expert had barged into Hongxian Divine City to target Zhu Shuowei. Some even lamented that even heroes had a weakness for the charms of a beautiful woman. Ying Jie hurriedly brought the delirious Zhu Shuowei away from this place. He wanted to give Zhuowen and Mai Shu some space. Zhuowen's 5 senses were far better than most cultivators. He naturally heard the crowd's discussion clearly. He also saw Ying Jie's actions. This made his face turn ugly and black lines appear on his forehead. What the hell was going on? Finally, after Mai Shu calmed down, she left Zhuowen's embrace with a red face. Big brother Zhuo, I lost control of my emotions just now. I hope you don't mind. Mai Shu stuttered as she spoke. She looked like a little girl. Zhuowen sighed softly and said, It's okay. Mai Shu, you are just like my younger sister. Why would I mind? When she heard Zhuowen's words, Mai Shu's face stiffened. However, she quickly returned to normal. However, her beautiful eyes were filled with gloominess. Mai Shu, is your mother, Mai Ying, still imprisoned in Dark Rock Divine City? Zhuowen saw Mai Shu's strange expression and changed the topic. When Mai Shu heard Mai Ying's name, her beautiful eyes turned red again. She sobbed and said, Big brother Zhuo, you must save my mother. She was plotted against by Qi Gaoming and is now imprisoned in the dungeon of Dark Rock Divine City. After Mai Shu saw Zhuowen's strength, she knew that only Zhuowen could save Mai Ying. Don't worry. Mai Ying is my friend. I will not sit by and do nothing. Zhuowen's eyes were cold as he brought Mai Shu into the city lord's mansion. Then, Mai Shu began to arrange for her men to regain control of Hongxian Divine City. Most of Zhu Shuowei's men in Hongxian Divine City had submitted to Mai Shu under Zhuowen's forceful methods. They did not dare to say a word against her. After dealing with the matters in Hongxian Divine City, Zhuowen brought Mai Shu and the delirious Zhu Shuowei back to Dark Rock Divine City. As for the matters in Hongxian Divine City, he left it to Ying Jie to deal with. In the City Lord's mansion of Dark Rock Divine City, Qi Gaoming was pacing back and forth in the hall with a gloomy expression. Since a while ago, he had been feeling depressed and had a bad premonition. Earlier, he had sent a message to Zhu Shuowei. However, there had been no response for a long time. This had made the bad feeling in his heart even more intense. Normally, Zhu Xiuwei would reply to his message very quickly. Especially after they had taken down Hongshen Divine City, Zhu Xiuwei had replied almost instantly. But now, there was no news from Zhu Xiuwei. Qi Gaoming suspected that something had happened to Zhu Xiuwei. It shouldn't be. The strongest person in Hongshen Divine City is Ying Jie. It's impossible for him to be a match for Immortal Master Zhu. However, Immortal Master Zhu has not replied to my message for so long. Could it be on purpose? The more Qi Gaoming paced back and forth, the more uneasy he became. Crisp footsteps could be heard from outside the hall. A subordinate rushed into the hall and knelt in front of Qi Gaoming. "What's the matter?" Qi Gaoming furrowed his brows and asked in an irritable tone. "City Lord Qi, someone outside Dark Rock Divine City said that he is looking for you. He said that he will give you 30 breaths of time. If you don't come out, your life will be in danger." The subordinate's voice was filled with anxiety. "What? Who is so bold to provoke me? What is his name?" Qi Gaoming was enraged when he heard that and questioned the subordinate. "That person said that his name is Zhuowen," the subordinate said in a low voice. Ting. Chapter 34:11. Step on you, Zhuowen? You said that the person who wants to see me outside the city is called Zhuowen? Qi Gaoming stepped forward and grabbed his subordinate's shoulders tightly with both hands. His entire body was trembling with excitement. Of course, Qi Gaoming's excitement was not a display of joy. Instead, it was filled with surprise, and his breathing was even more chaotic. To Qi Gaoming, Zhuowen was definitely a nightmare that he did not want to have. Originally, he thought that Zhuowen would never return after leaving the massacre heavenly region. But now, he actually heard this name again. The fear in his heart for Zhuowen once again welled up in his heart. "City Lord, that person's name is indeed Zhuowen." The subordinate grimaced in pain from Qi Gaoming's grip, and his words were a little disorderly. He did not understand why Qi Gaoming was so excited after hearing this name. "All right, you may leave first." After the subordinate left, Qi Gaoming regained his calm, and his gaze immediately became incomparably gloomy. "It should be someone with the same name. That Zhuowen has only left the massacre heavenly region not long ago, so it's impossible for him to return so quickly. Furthermore, it would be even more difficult for him to return to the massacre heavenly region from the outside world." Qi Gaoming muttered to himself. He was certain that the Zhuowen from the outside world was an imposter, and his expression became even uglier. "If it's just an imposter, he actually dares to be so arrogant and ask me to leave in 30 breaths of time. He's got some guts. When I go out, I'll definitely break his legs." With that, Qi Gaoming walked towards the city gate of Dark Rock Divine City. "City Lord." When Qi Gaoming arrived at the city gate, the cultivators guarding the gate bowed respectfully to Qi Gaoming. Qi Gaoming nodded, and his gaze landed on the two figures outside the city gate. These two figures were a man and a woman. The moment Qi Gaoming saw the man, he immediately lost his calm, because this man actually looked exactly the same as Zhuowen. Or rather, it was Zhuowen. However, Qi Gaoming quickly calmed down. Like Zhu Xiuwei, he believed that the Zhuowen in front of him was an imposter. "Your name is Zhuowen? Do you know who Zhuowen is?" Qi Gaoming asked coldly. Zhuowen and Mai Shu stood side by side. Hearing Qi Gaoming's question, Zhuowen's gaze suddenly became extremely strange. Before Zhuowen could answer, Qi Gaoming spoke again. He said coldly, "Zhuowen is my master, and I am his follower. You pretended to be my master. Do you really think that I, Qi Gaoming, am easy to bully?" Zhuowen's gaze became even stranger. He shook his head and said, "Qi Gaoming, are you playing dumb in front of me? Since you still recognize me as your master, then get down here and apologize." Qi Gaoming looked up to the sky and laughed. He said sarcastically, "You're just a fake. Although you look like my master, I know that you're definitely not my master, because master has already left the Slaughter Heaven domain. He is not in the Slaughter Heaven domain now. Can you use your brain when you're pretending? How dare you pretend to be my master when you don't even know such things?" Zhuowen shook his head. He was really defeated by Qi Gaoming's ability to invert right and wrong. He really didn't want to continue arguing with Qi Gaoming. His patience had been exhausted. He picked up the half-dead Zhu Shouwei from the macro world and threw him at Qi Gaoming. Qi Gaoming didn't react because the speed at which Zhu Shouwei was thrown was too fast. His gaze was cold as he threw out a punch. The moment his fist hit Zhu Shouwei, he heard a shrill scream. He knew that the person who was thrown was actually a person. Moreover, this person's scream was extremely familiar. Zhu Shouwei's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his mind instantly became much clearer. He stared at Qi Gaoming and only had time to say "you" before he fell heavily to the ground. His breathing was weak, and he couldn't be more dead. Qi Gaoming was stunned. He didn't expect Zhu Shouwei to be in Zhuowen's hands. No wonder Zhu Shouwei didn't respond when he sent him a message. Looking at Zhu Shouwei who had died in his hands, Qi Gaoming's eyes instantly turned red. He felt that he had been played, and a sense of humiliation rose in his heart. "You're courting death," Qi Gaoming roared. He took a step forward, jumped down the city wall, and attacked Zhuowen. What happened at the city gate had already attracted the attention of many cultivators in Dark Rock Divine City. Many figures floated in the sky above the Divine City, watching Qi Gaoming teach Zhuowen a lesson. "This is the first time I've seen the city lord so angry. This person really doesn't know what's good for him. He's going to suffer later. Not only will he suffer, I think he'll be beaten to death by the city lord." Many cultivators in Dark Rock Divine City were watching the battle calmly. In their eyes, this was an unfair battle. Everyone had seen Qi Gaoming's strength with their own eyes. Ever since Mai Ying was defeated by Qi Gaoming, all the cultivators in the Massacre Heavenly Domain subconsciously thought that Qi Gaoming was the strongest in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Now that a provocative fellow had come, they all subconsciously thought that this person was courting death. Zhuowen only raised his hand and easily caught Qi Gaoming's fist. Qi Gaoming struggled with all his might, but he found that he couldn't break free at all. He was shocked, and his eyes were filled with fear. He realized that he had underestimated the black-clothed youth in front of him. "Qi Gaoming, when I gave you the divine pill to help you break through, I didn't let you invade other divine cities and fulfill your ambitions. I wanted you to be obedient and wait for me to come back. Now that I'm back, you actually question my identity and try to kill me. You're really good, even better than that Zhu Shouwei." Zhuowen's tone gradually became heavier, and the strength in his hand also increased. Qi Gaoming's right fist immediately cracked. Qi Gaoming let out a blood-curdling scream and immediately cut off his right arm. Then, he quickly retreated. He was terrified. Looking at the black-clothed youth in front of him, he revealed a look of disbelief. He understood that the black-clothed youth in front of him was not pretending to be Zhuowen, but Zhuowen himself. However, Qi Gaoming felt that it was inconceivable. How could this Zhuowen return so early? And how did he return? "Can you retreat?" As Qi Gaoming was retreating, Zhuowen's voice also sounded, like the call of the god of death. Following that, Qi Gaoming felt a terrifying force that was as vast as a mountain and impossible to resist acting on Qi Gaoming's body. Qi Gaoming let out a muffled groan and directly smashed face down onto the ground. And the place where Qi Gaoming landed just happened to be in front of Zhuowen. Just as Qi Gaoming was about to struggle up, Zhuowen unceremoniously stomped his right foot down. Chapter 34:12. The entire Dark Rock Divine City was terrifyingly quiet. All the cultivators felt as if they had been struck by lightning. They were stunned on the spot as they watched Zhuowen stomp Qi Gaoming to the ground. From the moment Qi Gaoming made his move to being trampled under Zhuowen's foot, it had only been one move. Qi Gaoming had actually been defeated so cleanly. Since when did City Lord Qi become so weak? He had defeated City Lord Mai Ying before. He can be said to be the strongest person in the Massacre Heavenly region. It's not that City Lord Qi is weak, but this guy called Zhuowen is too strong. City Lord Qi, a mid-stage Tongtian master, was defeated in one move and stomped under his foot. This is definitely not something an ordinary person can do. This person must be a ruthless person who surpasses the mid-stage Tongtian master. You said he's called Zhuowen? I've heard that there was an expert called Zhuowen who killed the city lord of Dark Rock Divine City and subdued Qi Gaoming, Mai Ying, and other experts. However, he left the massacre heavenly region later. Could it be this person? The noise around them grew louder and louder. They began to guess Zhuowen's identity. All of them kept quiet out of fear, and no one dared to help Qi Gaoming. Not to mention Zhuowen's terrifying strength, just Zhuowen's legend in the massacre heavenly region was enough to make them lose the will to fight against him. Moreover, a late-stage Tongtian master like Qi Gaoming had been beaten so badly. How could they have the courage to go against a ruthless person like Zhuowen? Qi Gaoming was very sullen. He shouted for the subordinates of Dark Rock Divine City to attack, but unfortunately, no one listened to him. Everyone was intimidated by Zhuowen. Their feet felt as if they were filled with lead, and they didn't dare to step forward. Zhuowen's right leg hooked, and Qi Gaoming involuntarily floated in the air. Soon after, Zhuowen kicked out. Qi Gaoming's chest was fiercely kicked, and he spat out a mouthful of blood as he involuntarily flew out. Boom! Qi Gaoming slammed heavily into the wall, creating a human-shaped hole in the wall. His whole body was embedded in the wall. Lord Shui, please spare my life. I know I was wrong. Please spare my life. Qi Gaoming's entire body trembled as he spat out these words with great difficulty. He was truly terrified. The Zhuowen in front of him was too strong and too terrifying. He realized that Zhuowen's strength was much stronger than before. In any case, he was at the middle stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension, but he could beat him half to death with a casual wave of his hand. Moreover, Qi Gaoming also knew that Zhuowen had shown mercy. With Zhuowen's strength, it would be a piece of cake for him to kill him completely. Since Zhuowen had shown mercy, Qi Gaoming knew that Zhuowen did not intend to kill him immediately. He still had a chance to survive, so he promptly begged for mercy. You don't have the right to beg me for mercy. I'll give you a chance now. Hand over Mai Ying, or die. Zhuowen's voice was cold and emotionless. Qi Gaoming nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that Zhuowen had not killed him, so he still had a chance to live. Of course, this was on the premise that he performed well enough. Lord Shui, I'll bring you to see Mai Ying. Qi Gaoming struggled out of the hole and fell to the ground in a sorry state, gasping for breath. Zhuowen walked in front of Qi Gaoming and lifted him up, saying, "Now, show me the way." Qi Gaoming's eyes were filled with humiliation, but he was helpless. He knew that Zhuowen was too strong for him to contend with, so he could only show Zhuowen the way. Countless cultivators in Dark Rock City stared blankly at the scene in front of them. They saw Zhuowen carrying Qi Gaoming and following him step by step into the depths of the city. No one could have imagined that Qi Gaoming, who was usually high and mighty, was being carried by someone with one hand at this moment, as if he was a dog. This scene was indeed a little strange. Qi Gaoming's heart was filled with humiliation and helplessness. Under Qi Gaoming's lead, Zhuowen easily entered the dungeon of Dark Rock City. The dungeon of Dark Rock City was very spacious. There were basically no prisoners in the cells, so it was gloomy and cold. Mai Ying was locked in a solitary cell in the deepest part of the dungeon. This cell was filled with dirty water. Mai Ying was tied to a rusty cross on the subway. Her shoulder blades were pierced, and the tendons in her arms and legs were cut. Blood flowed continuously from the cross. Her hair was disheveled and her head hung low. Perhaps she heard footsteps, but her head only trembled slightly. She did not even raise her head. Her head was still hung low. Mother! Mai Shu covered her cherry lips when she saw Mai Ying's miserable state. Her voice was filled with grief and indignation. Mai Ying heard Mai Shu's voice and her delicate body trembled. She finally raised her head. It was difficult for her to do so. Her face was covered in blood. However, from the outline of her face that was covered in blood, it was not difficult to see that her face was unparalleled when it was clean. Shua, why are you here? It's dangerous here. You shouldn't be here. Hurry up and leave. Mai Ying said agitatedly. Although Mai Ying was very agitated, her words were weak. It was obvious that she had suffered a lot in this dungeon. Zhuo glanced coldly at Qi Gaoming, who had his head lowered, and said, "Good job." Then, he walked forward and smashed the prison door, crushing the cross and the shackles on Mai Ying. Mai Ying screamed and fell. She was so weak that she did not even have the strength to support her body. However, a strong arm wrapped around her waist to prevent her from falling to the ground. Mai Ying forced herself to turn her head and struggled to break free from the arm. However, when she saw Zhuowen's face, she could not help but be stunned, forgetting to struggle. "Zhuowen, why are you here?" Mai Ying's eyes were filled with doubt. Was she hallucinating because of the torture? Zhuowen had left the Massacre Sky territory. How could he be here? "I have returned to the Massacre Sky territory." Mai Ying, don't say anything. Swallow this elixir first. Zhuowen stopped Mai Ying, who was about to speak. He handed her a healing elixir and asked her to swallow it. Mai Ying trusted Zhuowen wholeheartedly. He swallowed the healing elixir without hesitation. A warm current flowed through Mai Ying's body. The originally weak Mai Ying was suddenly filled with energy and she looked much better. Mai Ying, who had recovered some of her strength, only then did she realize that Zhuowen's arm was still around her slender waist. Her beautiful face could not help but blush slightly as she moved away from Zhuowen without a trace. Zhuowen noticed Mai Ying's actions and laughed dryly. He changed the topic and said, "Mai Ying, I have brought the culprit here. You can deal with Qi Gaoming." Zhuowen said to Mai Ying as he pointed at Qi Gaoming, who was lying on the ground behind him. At that moment, Mai Shu threw herself into Mai Ying's arms. Her face was covered in tears. She sobbed and said, "Mother, I'm sorry that we were late. You have suffered so much." Mai Ying patted Mai Shu's back and sighed, "Shu, we have made you worry. Don't cry. Mother is fine now." Chapter 34:13. Asking for someone to lead the way at this moment, Qi Gaoming was trapped by Zhuowen's energy and was lying on the ground. He couldn't break free, let alone escape. City Lord Mai Ying, this is all a misunderstanding. It was Zhu Xiuwei's idea. It has nothing to do with me. Zhu Xiuwei has already been executed by me. City Lord Mai Ying, please be magnanimous and show me mercy. Qi Gaoming was terrified and his heart was about to jump out of his throat. He quickly begged for mercy without any shame. Mai Ying sneered in her heart and said indifferently, "No matter who came up with the idea, I only know that you are the one who has been torturing me all this time. I will only seek revenge from you." With that, Mai Ying's jade-like hand formed a sword and pointed at Qi Gaoming's forehead. Qi Gaoming screamed and his eyes glazed over. His divine soul was completely destroyed and he couldn't be more dead. After killing Qi Gaoming, Mai Ying turned around and knelt on one knee. She cupped her fists at Zhuowen and said, "Immortal Master Zhuowen, thank you very much. If it wasn't for you, I, Mai Ying, would have fallen here." Zhuowen helped Mai Ying up and said with a smile, "City Lord Mai Ying, you and I are friends. When a friend is in trouble, I, Zhuowen, will not sit idly by." Then, Mai Shu told Mai Ying about her encounter with Zhuowen. This made Mai Ying furious. She originally thought that Qi Gaoming had only subdued Dark Rock Divine City. She didn't expect him to not let Hongxian Divine City go. If it wasn't for Zhuowen, Hongxian Divine City and Mai Shu would have fallen. Thinking of this, Mai Ying felt a lingering fear and her gratitude towards Zhuowen grew even stronger. After that, Mai Ying displayed her strength as a strong woman. She reorganized the Dark Rock Divine City as fast as she could. Very soon, the originally chaotic Dark Rock Divine City was restored to order and peace under Mai Ying's control. After Dark Rock Divine City was completely reorganized, Mai Ying sent out an army to attack Quiet Sun Divine City. With Zhuowen's help, the Quiet Sun Divine City was like a chicken or a dog, easily breached. After completely subduing the Quiet Sun Divine City, Mai Ying sent trusted subordinates to guard the Quiet Sun Divine City and Dark Rock Divine City. Then, he followed Zhuowen back to Hongxian Divine City with Mai Shu. In the main hall of Hongxian Divine City, Mai Ying, Mai Shu, and Ying Jie were present. The three of them looked at Zhuowen in shock. Among them, Mai Shu asked in disbelief, "Big Brother Zhuo, Can you really help us leave the massacre heavens? Everyone knew that the only way to leave the massacre heavenly domain was to enter the Forbidden Death Mountain. Moreover, they also knew that the Forbidden Death Mountain range was very dangerous. Even if Mai Ying's cultivation base had broken through to the middle stage of the heaven-reaching master, he still wouldn't dare to enter the Forbidden Death Mountain range alone. She had originally planned to give it a try when she broke through to the late stage of the Heavenly Ascension realm. But now, she really didn't dare to do so. But now, Zhuowen said that he could bring them out of the massacre heavens. This really shocked them. However, when they thought about how Zhuowen had not only left the massacre heavens but also returned from the outside world, they knew that Zhuowen wasn't lying. Moreover, with Zhuowen's strength, there was no need for him to lie. If you trust me, I can bring you out of the massacre heavenly domain. However, you must be trustworthy and there can't be too many of you. Go back and make arrangements. Remember, there can't be more than 10 people. If there are too many people, I won't be able to bring them. Zhuowen reminded them. The reason why Zhuowen said this was not because he didn't have the ability to bring more people into the Forbidden Death Mountain, but because he wasn't optimistic about the teleportation array that he had set up temporarily. The teleportation array couldn't transport too many people. After receiving Zhuowen's reminder, Mai Ying, Ying Jie, and the rest went back to make arrangements. 3 days later, at the city gate of Hongxian Divine City, Mai Ying, Mai Shu, and Ying Jie had gathered. Besides them, there were 5 people that Zhuowen didn't recognize. The 5 of them were quite young. Judging from their auras, they shouldn't be from the human tribe, but from the foreign tribes of the primitive heavens domain. Celestial Master Zhuo, everything is ready. Are we going to enter the Forbidden Death Mountain? Mai Ying asked for Zhuowen's opinion. The 5 people behind Mai Ying were all excited. They looked at Zhuowen's back and whispered to each other. Although the 5 of them didn't speak loudly, Zhuowen's 5 senses were too strong and he heard their conversation. His celestial master Zhuo. He's so young. And he's quite handsome. He's actually able to stir up the entire massacre heavenly domain. He's a real demonic figure. I'm willing to be his cultivation partner, a beautiful female foreign tribe member said in a love-struck manner. Don't even think about it. Celestial Master Zhuo won't fall for a common woman like you. If you want to be his cultivation partner, you should at least be as pretty as Miss Mai Shu. You're still far from that. Another male foreign tribe member snorted. Zhuowen was speechless. He didn't continue to listen and blocked his divine perception. Just follow me. Once we reach the Forbidden Death Mountain, someone will come to pick us up. Zhuowen nodded and mounted the tall dragon horse. When the rest of the people saw Zhuowen's actions, they all mounted their own dragon horses. Let's go. Zhuowen spoke. Immediately, the group shot out like an arrow that had left a bow, leaving behind a trail of dust. The dragon horses were very fast. In just a day, they were already close to the Forbidden Death Mountain. Zhuowen brought everyone to the foot of a mountain in the Forbidden Death Mountain range and stopped. This was the exit that Zhuowen had used to leave the Forbidden Death Mountain under Shehu's instructions. Naturally, they could enter the Forbidden Death Mountain from here. Zhuowen took out his communication jade charm and sent a message to Shehu. If he didn't come, he would have to bear the consequences. When Shehu received Zhuowen's message, he cursed in his heart. However, there was nothing he could do. He was really afraid of this human. If he didn't go out to pick them up, this human would attack his nest and he would be finished. Thinking of this, Shehu sighed helplessly and left his nest. He went to the place that Zhuowen had instructed him to pick up Zhuowen. At the foot of the mountain, Mai Ying was curious about Zhuowen who was waiting for them. He asked curiously, Celestial Master Zhuo, aren't we going up directly? Why are we waiting here? The Forbidden Death Mountain's terrain is very complicated. Even I would get lost easily. That's why I invited a strange beast from the Forbidden Death Mountain to guide us. Zhuowen said flatly. What? A strange beast from the Forbidden Death Mountain? I heard that the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain are extremely terrifying. It is said that there are even some strange beasts at the level of the Master of Heaven. Celestial Master Zhuo, You can actually make the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain listen to you? Ma Ying's beautiful eyes narrowed as he found it unbelievable. The rest of the people were also surprised. They had all heard of the legend of the Forbidden Death Mountain and knew that the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain were the most difficult to deal with. Chapter 34:14. Giving away. Although everyone was in disbelief, no one dared to question him. Zhuowen was too powerful and ruthless. They did not dare to question such an expert. Zhuowen saw the doubt in everyone's eyes, but he did not point it out. Instead, he waited silently. He believed that Shuhu would not ignore his message. After all, the strength that he had displayed before was too strong. Shuhu would not offend him because of this. Sure enough, not long after, the thick black fog at the foot of the mountain dissipated and a figure landed at the foot of the mountain. Ma Ying and the others were waiting in boredom. When the black fog dissipated, they immediately became vigilant. They looked solemnly at the figure that came out of the Forbidden Death Mountain range. The figure had a tiger's head and a human's body. Its aura was vast and boundless like the ocean. Ma Ying's beautiful eyes narrowed the moment she saw the tiger-headed man. She said in a low voice, "It's an exotic beast at the middle stage of the sky-reaching master realm. It's very powerful." Ma Shu, Ying Jie, and the 5 juniors became nervous when they heard Ma Ying's words. They had lived in the massacre heavenly domain for a long time and had heard a lot about the Forbidden Death Mountain range. They knew that the exotic beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain range were much stronger than those of the same rank. Cultivators of the same rank would usually be defeated if they fought against the exotic beasts. Although the tiger-headed exotic beast had the same cultivation level as Ma Ying, everyone knew that Ma Ying would not be a match for the exotic beast. However, Ma Ying and the others were less nervous when they saw Zhuowen. They thought of Zhuowen's strength and knew that the tiger-headed exotic beast might not be a match for Zhuowen. They had originally thought that there would be a great battle. Who would have thought that the tiger-faced, human-bodied beast with a grand aura would walk in front of Zhuowen, kneel on one knee and say respectfully, "Greetings, Lord." Ma Ying, Ma Shu, and the others couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock. This strange beast with a tiger's face and a human's body was at least at the mid-stage of the Heaven Ascension realm. Yet, it was actually kneeling in front of Zhuowen to express its submission. "Celestial Master Zhuo, don't tell me that the person you mentioned earlier is this strange beast." Ma Ying regained his senses and asked, "Who are you calling an exotic beast? Human, you better watch your words. Otherwise, don't blame me for tearing your mouth apart." Shuhu looked at Ma Ying with hostility. Don't look at how respectful and obedient Shuhu was towards Zhuowen. That was because Zhuowen's strength was too strong, suppressing him to the point that he did not dare to act recklessly. However, Ma Ying was not Zhuowen, and he was not that powerful. With Shuhu's personality, he would not be nice to Ma Ying and the others. "They are all my friends. Watch your words," Zhuowen said faintly. Shuhu trembled when he heard that. He could hear a trace of killing intent in Zhuowen's words. Shuhu quickly forced a smile and said, "Sir, you worry too much. I was just joking with them just now." Zhuowen nodded and said without batting an eyelid, "I need to bring my friend into the Forbidden Mountain range, which is the place all of you found me at that time. Bring me there now, and this divine pill is yours." Zhuowen took out a spirit-cleansing divine pill and waved it in front of Shuhu. Then, he kept it in the macro world. Shuhu's eyes widened the moment he saw the spirit-cleansing divine pill. He was no stranger to the spirit-cleansing divine pill. Not only could it increase the probability of an early-stage Heaven Ascension Realm Master breaking through to the mid-stage, but it also had unimaginable benefits for the mid-stage Heaven Ascension Realm Master. A divine pill of this level was too precious. It could be said that it was hard to find even one. Now, the human cultivator in front of him casually took it out. This made Shuhu view Zhuowen even more highly. Of course, he was also even more apprehensive of Zhuowen in his heart. He was very clear that the resources on this person were so abundant, his strength was so formidable. He definitely had an extremely robust background behind him. When Shuhu saw Zhuowen put away the spirit-cleansing divine pill, his gaze was slightly disappointed. But he came back to his senses very quickly and said with a face full of eagerness, "Your Excellency, this lowly one will definitely do it well for you. You can rest assured." Zhuowen nodded and said, "Then lead the way in front." Shi, who had a look of eagerness as he led Zhuowen's party into the stone steps that went up at the foot of the mountain. These stone steps presented a verdant color, sparkling and translucent, like jade, emitting a light that was hard to look at. The moment Zhuowen stepped onto the stone steps, he had already entered the range of the forbidden Death Mountain. Dense and powerful sword qi surged toward Zhuowen, drilling into his acupoints in an attempt to pierce through Zhuowen. Zhuowen was not surprised. This was not the first time he had stepped onto these stone steps. Coupled with his strong physical body, these sword qi really could not cause any harm to him. However, Zhuowen frowned slightly. The moment he saw Mai Ying and the others step onto the stone steps, they all exclaimed in surprise. Mai Ying and Ying Jie were still fine. Their cultivation was the strongest among them, so naturally, they could withstand the sword qi around them. On the other hand, Mai Shu and the other 5 juniors had the lowest cultivation. The moment they encountered the sword qi, they were immediately thrown into disarray and suffered serious injuries. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and used the profound creation mysterious light. A blazing white light spread out with Zhuowen as the center. Instantly, with Zhuowen as the center, the white light formed a solid boundary that enveloped Mai Shu and the others within a 10-meter radius. As soon as the boundary appeared, the terrifying sword qi around them was immediately blocked outside. "Thank you, Brother Zhuo." Mai Shu and the others steadied themselves. Naturally, they also noticed the boundary that suddenly appeared around them. They quickly cupped their hands and thanked Zhuowen. Shi, who was leading the way in front, also stopped. He looked at the boundary around them and looked at Zhuowen with even more respect. He could feel that the boundary that Zhuowen had just cast was very powerful. He even doubted if he could break it if he attacked with all his might. Then, the group continued on their way. Soon, Shi, who led the group to the area where Zhuowen had just teleported into the Forbidden Death Mountain range. As soon as Zhuowen entered the area, he waved his right hand and summoned several beast bone array discs. He began to deduce the original teleportation trajectory. This time, he quickly found the original teleportation trajectory. After all, he had just entered the Massacre Heavenly Domain not long ago, so it was naturally easy to find the teleportation trajectory. After finding the teleportation trajectory, Zhuowen began to set up the teleportation array. About an hour later, Zhuowen finished setting up the teleportation array. After he threw a few thousand heavenly law origin crystals into the teleportation array, it immediately emitted a blazing white light. Within the teleportation array, there was even a powerful spatial fluctuation. Zhuowen looked at Mai Ying and the others and said, "City Lord Mai Ying, Miss Mai Shu, the teleportation array is ready. You can all enter now." Chapter 34:15. Mysterious Image Lake Big Brother Zhuo. Why aren't you entering the teleportation array? After entering the teleportation array, Mai Shu saw that Zhuowen hadn't moved and hurriedly asked. As soon as Mai Shu said that, Mai Ying, Ying Jie, and the rest came to their senses and looked at Zhuowen in confusion. Zhuowen cupped his hands and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, I'm afraid I can't follow you to the primitive heavenly realm." "Why?" "Big Brother Zhuo, you're also from the primitive heavenly realm. Why don't you follow us?" Mai Shu asked in confusion. "Immortal Master Zhuo, do you want to stay in the slaughter heavenly realm? This place isn't suitable for you. If you follow us to the primitive heavenly realm, I'll use the nine-tailed fox clan's power to repay your kindness," Mai Ying said. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "The primitive heavenly realm isn't my hometown. My real identity isn't from the Devouring Clan. The Devouring Clan is just a clone of mine. My real body is a human. So, I can't follow you." Zhuowen cupped his hands and said, "Everyone, if there's a chance in the future, we'll meet again. Let's part ways here." Zhuowen threw out a formation flag and the teleportation array emitted a blazing white light that engulfed everyone. Zhuowen watched as the white light gradually disappeared. Then he turned around and looked at Shi, who was still following behind him. He tossed a grand peace spirit divine pill to Shehu. "Thank you, my lord." Shehu's eyes widened when he received the spirit-cleansing divine pill. He thanked Zhuowen again and was extremely excited. "Shehu, I heard that the Forbidden Mountain Range is the only way out of the Slaughter Heavenly Realm. However, I've tried this place before and I only know that it leads to the primitive Heavenly Realm. Is there no other way out?" Zhuowen asked indifferently. Shehu carefully put away the spirit-cleansing divine pill and looked at Zhuowen. After knowing that Zhuowen was a human, he already knew why Zhuowen asked that question. He grinned and said, "Sir, you may not know this, but the Forbidden Death Mountain is not the only way to leave the Slaughter Heavenly Realm. Your guess is right. The Forbidden Death Mountain is an exit that leads to the Great Desolate Heaven Realm. I know you are a human, and the place you want to return to should be the Shen Mi Heavenly Domain, and the other place I want to tell you is the entrance to the mysterious passageway that leads to the Shen Mi Heavenly Domain." Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He knew that there was more than one exit in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. He had learned about the Slaughter Heavenly Domain from the Black King. He knew that this Heavenly Domain was a very mysterious and strange Heavenly Domain between the Great Desolate Heavenly Domain and the Shen Mi Heavenly Domain. Since there was an exit to the Great Desolate Heavenly Domain, there must be an exit to the Shen Mi Heavenly Domain. When Zhuowen saw the hesitation on Shehu's face, he knew that this fellow wanted some benefits. Zhuowen took out a grand peace spirit divine pill again and said indifferently, "Tell me, and this divine pill is yours." When Shehu saw that Zhuowen actually took out another grand peace spirit divine pill, his eyes immediately revealed a look of surprise. At the same time, he was shocked by Zhuowen's wealth to be able to take out so many divine pills so casually. In the opposite direction of the Forbidden Death Mountain, it can be considered another border of the Massacre Heavenly Domain. There is a vast and boundless lake. We call it the Mystic Image Lake. The reason why this lake has such a name is entirely because cultivators who enter the Mystic Image Lake will encounter a mirror image human figure that is exactly the same as him. This is the strange part of the Mystic Image Lake. It can completely replicate all the abilities and divine artifacts of the cultivators who enter the Mystic Image Lake, and the replicated mirror image human figure's strength is even stronger than the original. In the Massacre Heavenly Domain, the gathering place of the Quiet Sun Divine City is basically filled with human cultivators. Many of them choose to barge into the Mystic Image Lake in order to leave this place, hoping to return to the Shen Mi Heavenly Domain. However, these human cultivators who barged into the Mystic Image Lake were all annihilated and died in the Mystic Image Lake. That place is even more terrifying than the Forbidden Death Mountain. No matter how strong you are, the Mystic Image Lake will create a mirror image human figure that is even stronger than you. The final result of barging in is death. At this point, Shehu looked at Zhuowen and advised Zhuowen not to rashly attempt to enter the Mystic Image Lake. He had also received a lot of benefits from Zhuowen and had a good impression of Zhuowen. Although he knew that Zhuowen was very strong, wanting to pass through the Mystic Image Lake was not something that could be done with just strength. That place was an unsolvable place. Zhuowen nodded. Although Shehu advised that that place was not a good place, Zhuowen was unmoved. He had to return to the Shen Mi Heavenly Domain. Not only did he have to find Mu Chunshua's whereabouts, but his Rika family was still in the Shen Mi Heavenly Domain. All these years, he had been running around in the outside world and rarely returned to Rika. He did not even know how his Rika family members were doing. This time in the primitive Heavenly Domain, Zhuowen's strength had increased greatly. Furthermore, the Great World was extremely hidden. He decided that after returning to the Shen Mi Heavenly Domain, he would bring the Rika family to live in the Great World. With the resources and foundation in the Great World, he would definitely be able to build the Rika family into an extremely powerful force. After all, his foundation had far surpassed all the other powerful forces. Even the Sorcerer tribe, the number one tribe in the primitive Heavenly Domain, could not compare to Zhuowen's current foundation. In addition, he was a powerful array master and alchemist. As long as he was still around, the Rika family would only become more prosperous. In the end, Zhuowen obtained the route to the mysterious image lake from Shehu and left the forbidden Death Mountain range. Shehu looked at Zhuowen's departing figure and shook his head. He sighed softly and said, "This lord is really stubborn. The mysterious image lake is simply unsolvable, but he still wants to go. I really don't know what he is thinking." However, when he thought about how he had obtained 2 Grand Harmony Spirit Elixirs for no reason, his expression immediately became much more cheerful. This time, he had gotten a huge bargain. If he completely refined the Grand Harmony Spirit Elixir, his cultivation would improve greatly again. Zhuowen's speed was very fast. He rode the space-time roulette and advanced rapidly. In just 2 days, he had crossed the entire Massacre Heavenly Domain and arrived at the other border of the Massacre Heavenly Domain that Shehu had mentioned. The Massacre Heavenly Domain was much smaller than the primitive Heavenly Domain and the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. Therefore, he did not need to spend much time to cross the entire Massacre Heavenly Domain. Zhuowen stopped the space-time roulette. At the same time, he also saw at the end ahead. An incomparably huge lake with clear and crystalline waves appeared before his eyes. The shape of this lake was oval-shaped. The surface of the lake flickered with a cold light, sparkling and shining. It was very extraordinary. Zhuowen stopped at the shore of the lake. Looking at the clear and crystalline lake water under his feet, his brows furrowed. This lake was no different from an ordinary lake. He did not even feel the fluctuations of an array formation in the surroundings. If not for Shehu's reminder, he would have suspected whether this lake was the mysterious image lake or not. But very soon, Zhuowen revealed a look of surprise. He looked at the figure in the lake that reflected his reflection. That figure was also looking at him. Zhuowen discovered that the pair of eyes of the figure in the lake was actually a faint blue. It was completely different from his black pupils. Chapter 34:16. Mirror Image Shadow Splash. The sharp sound of water suddenly rang out, and the figure reflected in the water was grinning maliciously at Zhuowen, and without any warning, he attacked swiftly and violently. An arm quickly reached out of the water and grabbed Zhuowen's feet, intending to pull Zhuowen into the lake. Zhuowen's reaction was very fast. The moment the figure attacked, he had already retreated. What surprised Zhuowen was that the moment he retreated, he couldn't see his own figure. The arm that reached out of the water also collapsed. The surface of the lake was still tranquil. The waves were clear and crystalline, flickering with a lustrous light. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He stopped in his tracks and didn't look too good. The next few times, Zhuowen tried to walk to the shore of the lake. Every time, his figure would be reflected in the lake, and every time, the figure in the lake would reveal a sinister smile and decisively attack Zhuowen. One time, Zhuowen's reaction was slower and his right foot was immediately grabbed by the figure in the lake. The figure was very strong and Zhuowen was almost dragged into the water. Fortunately, Zhuowen used the power of time and space in time to escape the range of the lake. Zhuowen stood quite far away from the shore of the lake and looked pensive. After a few attempts, Zhuowen finally figured out the pattern of the mystic image lake. As long as a person's figure was reflected on the surface of the water, the mysterious image lake would produce a mirror image of a person. As for this mirrored figure, its strength was even more extraordinary. It was even stronger than the original. He could guess a thing or two from the fact that he was almost dragged into the lake by the figure in the water. According to Shehu, if he wanted to pass through the mystic image lake, he had to defeat the mirror image produced by the mystic image lake. His clone cultivated the Pangu sacred body and was the strongest. However, in the mystic image lake, the mirror image produced would probably be stronger than his clone. Zhuowen didn't plan to let his clone fight. At the thought of this, he summoned his true body of the human race from the great world. The white robes of the true body of the human race fluttered along with the wind. His face carried a scholarly smile. Furthermore, his cultivation base had also made significant progress. Ever since he had broken through to the Heavenly Master Realm, coupled with the abundant resources of the outside world, his cultivation base had reached the peak of the early Heavenly Master Realm. He wasn't far from the middle stage of the Master of Heaven Realm. Although the cultivation of his true body might not be particularly high, His human true body had successfully attained the Tao with a body without a Tao root. It could be said that this was unprecedented. Correspondingly, the main body's battle prowess was absolutely astonishing, far surpassing those of the same level. It could fight against a mid-stage Heaven's Ascension Master, and there was even a high chance that it could defeat a mid-stage Heaven's Ascension Master. For the battle at the Mystic Image Lake this time, it was most appropriate to send his true body to try it out. Once the main body was no match for the main body, the clone could forcefully intervene and swiftly rescue the main body. This also meant that there was an additional layer of protection. The main body of the human race nodded to the clone, then walked step by step toward the Mystic Image Lake. The instant he reached the shore, he suddenly stomped his right foot and instantly leaped into the air, landing in the center of the lake. The clone sat cross-legged on the shore and looked at the main body floating in the air above the lake. Then, he looked at the surface of the water at the center of the lake. The main body's figure appeared there. The figure's eyes were still dark blue, and there was a strange smile on his face. Splash! Suddenly, the figure broke out of the water and let out a beast-like roar. He quickly swept toward the main body in the air above the center of the lake. A terrifying force swept out, and countless splashes of water splashed in all directions, forming pillars of water one after another in the air. These pillars of water shot straight into the sky like water dragons. Countless splashes of water scattered in all directions, forming a hazy mist above the water. The main body snorted coldly, and a pair of huge illusory eyes appeared behind him. It was the torch dragon's eye that he had used. The torch dragon's eye was very mysterious, and its pupils emitted a faint light as if it could see through everything and illusions. The main body took a strange step in midair, and then his eyes flickered. He stomped his right foot, and a terrifying force shook the ground as he stomped toward one of the water pillars below. Bang! 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 Zhuowen's leg strength was terrifying, and it carried the terrifying power of the heavenly Tao. The water pillar directly exploded, splashing out dazzling water. Bang! At the same time, a figure suddenly rushed out from the exploding water pillar and punched the back of the main body. The fist force was like a rainbow, and it was terrifying as if it could split the sky and earth. The main body was already prepared. He turned around and suddenly flicked his right leg. Endless astral winds swept out with his right leg, and it was very terrifying. Bang! The fist and leg collided, and endless ripples exploded. The main body and the figure suddenly separated, and the two of them let out a muffled groan at the same time. Zhuowen stabilized his body and began to carefully size up the mirror figure opposite him. The figure was almost the same height as him. The only thing he didn't understand was that the figure's entire body was pitch black, and his facial features couldn't be seen. It was as if the figure in front of him was a shadow. Whoosh! The figure stomped his foot and launched another attack. The main body didn't show any weakness and also flew out. Suddenly, the two of them fought again, and the terrifying ripples of the battle spread out in all directions like mist. The battle between the two of them was very terrifying. The space above the lake was crisscrossed and collapsed, and pillars of water flew out from the lake one after another, straight into the sky like water dragons. It was very spectacular. The doppelganger sitting cross-legged on the shore looked more and more serious. He found that the main body was gradually suppressed by the figure. The attack methods of the two were almost identical, and there was no difference, but the figure's strength was much stronger than the main body. This can't go on. The main body will lose without a doubt. I have to pull the main body back first. The doppelganger muttered to himself and began to communicate with the main body, telling him to go to the shore first. The doppelganger quickly took action and pulled him out of the range of the mysterious image lake. However, the doppelganger didn't get a response from the main body. His expression gradually became strange because he found that in the process of the main body's continuous battle with the mirror figure, the main body's eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. Seeing the look of enlightenment in the main body's eyes, the doppelganger, who originally wanted to persuade the main body to come back, stopped. He knew the main body's situation. The main body's cultivation was already at the peak of the early stage of the Heaven Ascension Master, and it was only half a step away from the middle stage. Originally, with the powerful foundation of the Great World, it was not impossible to forcefully use resources to promote the main body in a short period of time, but there would be corresponding side effects, so the main body naturally didn't choose this method. The main body was looking for some kind of opportunity, an opportunity to comprehend. He was very clear that as long as he could find this opportunity, then a breakthrough would be a matter of course. Chapter 34:17. Meeting the Black King again. Although the original body was constantly being suppressed by the mirror image, he was not defeated. Instead, the original body's eyes were becoming more and more enlightened. Following that, the original body's aura changed. The original body's aura was also becoming stronger, as if it would break through at any time. Bang! The original body was pushed back again. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his face was slightly pale. However, the original body's lips were curled up. He was smiling, and the curvature of his lips was getting wider and wider. His eyes became extremely clear, and they were filled with a strong fighting spirit. Once again, he fought with the mirror image. This time, the original body was no longer at a disadvantage. Instead, the more he fought, the braver he became. The aura on his body also became more and more violent and powerful. Boom! The original body suddenly threw out a punch. Instantly, terrifying lightning exploded, and an ear-piercing explosion sounded. As for the power of this punch, it was fully unleashed. It had actually reached an unprecedentedly terrifying level. The mirror image was like a machine that did not know fear. He also threw out a punch, intending to meet the original body head-on. With a crisp cracking sound, the mirror image's right fist was shattered. Blood splattered everywhere, and he was in a miserable state. He kept retreating. The original body's aura became more and more vast. The energy on his body kept rising, forming a terrifying and complicated energy storm above his head. At the same time, the original body's power also rose to a terrifying level. The original body took a step forward and caught up with the mirror image. He threw out a punch, and it landed heavily on the mirror image's chest. The mirror image's chest was directly smashed. Blood burst out, and his sternum caved in. He looked extremely miserable. The original body did not let the mirror image go so easily. He threw out punch after punch, and the power of each punch was extremely terrifying. It could shatter any physical body, and it was so terrifying that it could destroy the heavens and earth. Fart! The original body finally threw out a punch, and it landed on the mirror image's back. Then, the mirror image screamed and exploded into nothingness. At this moment, the original body's aura had reached its peak. His body emitted crackling sounds, as if many beans were colliding with each other. Finally, his aura was elevated to a higher level, and the energy in his body was constantly being reorganized and transformed. He was in high spirits. The clone that was seated on the shore slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the main body that was still floating in the air above the mysterious image lake and muttered to himself, "I never imagined that the main body would actually make a breakthrough in the middle of the battle." The battle at the mysterious image lake this time has truly benefited the main body quite a bit. But soon, the Avatar's gaze was attracted to the center of the mysterious image lake. At the center of the profound image lake, a violently rotating vortex actually appeared. This whirlpool was very big, and it was pitch black inside. It was incomparably deep, and it was impossible to see what was in the depths. However, his main body, which was hovering above the lake, saw the depths of the vortex through the torch dragon's eye. In the depths, he saw the exit to the massacre heavenly domain. He knew that if he won the battle of the mystic image lake this time, he would also win the right to leave the slaughter sky domain. Speaking of which, he should be the first cultivator to pass through the profound image lake in the slaughter heavenly domain. After all, Shehu had said that no human cultivator had successfully passed the test of the mystic image lake. The clone on the shore stood up and took a step forward to the main body's side. He looked down at the black vortex below and said to the main body, "Main body, it's been hard on you this time. Enter the great world first. Leave the rest to me." The main body nodded. He had just broken through and urgently needed to consolidate his newly advanced realm. After the main body entered the great world, the clone hesitated for a moment before rushing into the vortex below. The moment he entered the vortex, Zhuowen's vision fell into darkness. However, by using his divine thought, he was able to see the inside of the whirlpool clearly. What made Zhuowen feel strange was that the vortex stirred up the lake so violently, but the inside of the vortex was very quiet. Moreover, through his divine thought, Zhuowen discovered that there was actually a staircase inside the vortex. This staircase was forged from bluestone. The surface was smooth and exquisite like jade. Zhuowen continued to walk down the staircase. As he went down, Zhuowen saw many corpses. They must be the corpses of cultivators who had failed the test and died in the profound image lake. After about half a day, Zhuowen walked out of the staircase and came to a dark secret room. In front of the secret room, there was a bronze tree. Zhuowen was very familiar with this bronze tree. When he had entered the mysterious passage, he had walked along the light and darkness path. At the end of the light and darkness path was a bronze tree. At that time, he had relied on the bronze tree's teleportation power to finally teleport him into the slaughter heavenly domain. This bronze tree was exactly the same as the one Zhuowen had seen last time. In the middle of the tree was a palm-sized blood pattern. The blood pattern was very complicated and gave off the smell of blood. Under the blood pattern, there were 3 grooves. Zhuowen knew that these grooves were for heavenly Tao origin crystals. Zhuowen straightforwardly took out 3 supreme-grade heavenly Tao origin crystals and placed them in the grooves. Suddenly, the blood pattern on the bronze tree spun rapidly and emitted an intense bloody light. The bloody light spread and formed a bloody vortex that sucked Zhuowen in. When Zhuowen opened his eyes, he was standing under another bronze tree, and in front of him was a very familiar path of light and darkness. Below the light and darkness path was a winding river of light and darkness. Looking at the river of light and darkness below, Zhuowen was so angry that his teeth itched. When he had first entered the slaughter heavenly domain, he had questioned the Phoenix people's saintess. Later, he had found out that the river of light and darkness led directly to the prehistoric heavenly domain. And this light and darkness path led to the Xian Mi heavenly domain. Back then, the Black King had deliberately misled him. If he had directly entered the river of light and darkness, he would not have had to go through so much trouble to enter the slaughter heavenly domain and then enter the prehistoric heavenly domain through the forbidden Death Mountain range. Who knew how much effort and time had been spent? Sigh. I hope that the Black King is more reliable this time. Zhuowen shook his head and sighed. He stepped onto the light and darkness path and rushed towards the source of the light and darkness path. When Zhuowen arrived at the source of the light and darkness path, he saw a huge black lion that was as big as a mountain. Black King. When Zhuowen saw the black lion, his expression did not look too good. It was even unfriendly. The black lion also saw Zhuowen. It smiled cheekily and said, "Oh, it's Zhuowen. What a coincidence to meet you here. You're really lucky to be able to come out after entering the slaughter heavenly domain again. What a surprise, and also made me lose a little miserably." When the black lion said this, its face was full of resentment. Zhuowen felt a chill run down his spine. Lose? Who did you bet with? Zhuowen caught the loophole in the Black King's words and asked. The Black King patted his head and said, "It's just a bet with a friend of mine. I bet that you would die in the slaughter heavenly domain and would not last for 49 days. My friend bet that you would come out alive. I think you know the final result." Zhuowen's eyes emitted a green light as he looked at the Black King unkindly. This guy actually used him as a wager. Zhuowen was very unhappy. However, although he was unhappy, the Black King was very powerful. The aura on his body made even Zhuowen tremble with fear. Chapter 34:18. The death of Tan Xinghua. The Black King was embarrassed. He looked at Zhuowen's unfriendly gaze and laughed dryly. "I wasn't the one who suggested this bet. It was my friend who pestered me to make the bet. What can I do?" Zhuowen looked at the Black King suspiciously and asked, "Who is your friend?" Zhuowen Cai would not listen to Black King's nonsense. He knew very well that Black King loved to bet. This bet must have been proposed by this fellow first. However, this fellow had lost and pushed all the blame to his scapegoat friend. The Black King shrugged and said, "I won't tell that old guy. He asked me to keep it a secret. I won't tell you." Zhuowen didn't care. He could guess that the so-called friend who bet with the Black King should be the three pure ones. Zhuowen said calmly, "Now don't block the way. I need to leave this place. Send me back to the Xian-Mi heavenly territory. Do you think I want to wait for you? I'm here to send you a message. The three pure ones want you to go to the heaven accessing place as soon as possible. He wants me to send you to the starry sky battlefield. You've caused a lot of trouble in the untainted heavenly territory. Fortunately, most people think you died together with the weird green-haired mummy. You're safe now. However, if you go back to the Xian-Mi heavenly territory and appear in front of everyone, your former enemies will easily pass the news of you to the Wu Lu and other forces in the heaven accessing place." The Black King's eyes became serious. He warned Zhuowen to be careful when he went back to the Xian-Mi heavenly territory. Many practitioners in the Xian-Mi heavenly territory knew that Zhuowen had used the alias of Long Wen. If he appeared in the Xian-Mi heavenly territory as Zhuowen, it would be easy to arouse suspicion. Then someone would definitely leak the secret. Hearing this, Zhuowen fell silent. He felt a chill in his heart. He really didn't think of this. Now that the Black King reminded him, he broke out in a cold sweat. Seeing Zhuowen's frightened expression, the Black King looked a little proud and said, "It seems that you didn't think of this. Fortunately, I told you in advance. How are you going to thank me?" Zhuowen furrowed his brows. He did not care about the Black King's irritating expression. Instead, he began to think about how he would continue to disguise himself after returning to the Xian-Mi heaven domain. Furthermore, he could no longer use the names Long Wen and Zhuowen. "Black King, thank you so much. Teleport me to the Xian-Mi heavenly domain," Zhuowen said solemnly. "Brat, are you even listening to me? Don't you want to go to the heaven accessing place to meet the old guys, three pure ones? You should know that you destroyed the Sorcerer God City and killed many experts of the Sorcerer tribe. You even killed the Sorcerer tribe's Saint Master. Once the Wu Lu knows that you are fine, most of the forces in the primitive heavenly realm in the heaven accessing place will put you on the wanted list. At that time, you will be really miserable. It will be difficult for the three pure ones to protect you, and the rest of the ancestral sorcerers' corpses are basically in the heaven accessing place. It's useless for you to wander around the Xian-Mi heavenly domain and the untainted heavenly domain now." The Black King stared at him. He was still trying to persuade Zhuowen, hoping that Zhuowen would change his mind. "I still have some things to do in the Xian-Mi heavenly domain. After I finish these things, I will naturally go to the heaven accessing place," Zhuowen said solemnly. Seeing that Zhuowen was so determined, the Black King did not try to persuade him again. He said, "Since you have made up your mind, I will not force you. Anyway, I have already delivered your message. Next, I will teleport you out first. It's still the starry sky battlefield. You are free to go wherever you want." As he spoke, the Black King waved his claw. A stream of black energy gushed out and wrapped Zhuowen in an instant. "Hey! Wait, teleport me to the host region of the Xian-Mi heavenly domain. Don't be in such a hurry," Zhuowen said hurriedly. Unfortunately, the Black King was faster. The black energy wrapped Zhuowen and took him away in an instant. "Ah, did that brat say something just now? Did he want me to teleport him to some host region?" After the teleportation, the Black King patted his huge head with his claw. But soon, he laughed and said to himself, "It must be my illusion. How could I be wrong? Ha." The empty and lonely starry sky was cold and empty. Countless meteorites and broken stones were floating around. A beam of light landed on a medium-sized meteorite. When the light faded, a slender young man in black appeared. Zhuowen stood on the meteorite and looked around. After confirming that this was indeed a starry sky in the starry sky battlefield, his face darkened. He knew that the Black King was unreliable, but he did not expect him to be so unreliable. This was the second time that the Black King had teleported him to another place. Damn it! Even if I die in the future, I will not let the Black King teleport me, Zhuowen thought to himself. After calming down, he took out the starry sky map. After confirming his current location, he sent out the spacetime roulette and flew toward the encampment of the starry sky battlefield. When Zhuowen returned to the encampment of the human race in the starry sky battlefield, he immediately realized that the atmosphere in the encampment was not right. Most of the cultivators in the encampment were in a hurry and were ready to go. It was as if they were preparing for the upcoming battle. When he landed in the eastern encampment, the situation became even more obvious. Moreover, the moment Zhuowen entered the encampment, he used his spiritual force to scan the entire encampment. Zhuowen's spiritual force was very powerful now. It had even surpassed the peak experts of the sky-reaching master. When he scanned with his spiritual force, the 4 Downlords really could not detect him. After all, the quality of their spiritual forces was not on the same level. He realized that among the 4 Downlords guarding the encampment, the eastern Downlord, Tan Xinghua, was not in the eastern encampment. The other 3 Downlords were present, but they did not look too good. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a strange expression. He felt even more puzzled. Did the 4 Downlords encounter some trouble? Among the 4 Downlords, Zhuowen liked the eastern Downlord, Tan Xinghua, the most. Zhuowen did not like the other 3 Downlords. After all, when he was asked to hand over the foreign race army, only the eastern Downlord, Tan Xinghua, stood up and opposed the rest. Zhuowen disguised himself as a fierce-looking middle-aged man and entered the eastern encampment. He did not attract too much attention. Sigh. It's such a pity that Downlord Tan has fallen just like that. His death was not worth it. Downlord Tan should have died in the war against the foreign race. He died in the hands of his own race just like that. His death was not worth it. As soon as Zhuowen landed in the eastern encampment, he heard people sighing and talking beside him. The content of the conversation instantly caused Zhuowen's pupils to shrink. A surge of anger rose in his heart. Chapter 34:19. Crisis in the host region. Fellow Taoists, what happened to Tao Master Tan? I saw him alive and well a while ago. How did he die? Zhuowen stood in front of the 2 people who were talking about Tan Xinghua and asked with a sincere look. The 2 of them should be cultivators from the Eastern Space Camp. One of them was rather old, in his 40s. He had a beard and looked very rough. The other was a young cultivator, in his 20s. He was fair and clean and had the air of a scholar. The 2 of them looked at Zhuowen cautiously. The middle-aged man had a strange look on his face as he said, "My friend, don't you know? Sect Master Tan's death has spread like wildfire in the space camp." "How can you not know?" Zhuowen explained, "I was in a dangerous place in the space battlefield some time ago and was trapped for a while. I just came out recently. When I returned to the space camp, I heard the 2 of you talking about Sect Master Tan. I was curious, so I wanted to ask about the details." As he spoke, Zhuowen gave the 2 of them a few high-grade Heavenly Path Origin crystals. After the 2 of them accepted the Heavenly Path Origin crystals, their expressions relaxed. They looked at each other. The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Since you are so sincere, I will tell you. This is not a secret. Now, all 4 space camps know about it. This matter started from the sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Yin Corps sect, Sakyamuni. Then, the middle-aged man began to speak. Zhuowen listened quietly. However, the more he listened, the more gloomy his expression became. From the middle-aged man's narration, Zhuowen finally understood what had happened in the host region. He also knew why Tan Xinghua had died. And it all started from the 10 Ultimates Yin Corps sect in the host region. The previous sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Yin Corps sect, Senki Yin, suddenly died not long after Zhuowen left the Xian Mi Sky region. As Senki Yin's direct disciple, Sakyamuni took over as the new sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Yin Corps sect. After Sakyamuni became the new sect leader, the 10 Ultimates Yin Corps sect had been very peaceful. However, in the past 2 months, Indra had suddenly adopted a thunderous strategy. He had led the army of the Yin Corps sect of the Ten Extremes to attack the Tao Palace forces of the host region, Fallen Star Mountain, Void Palace, and Sun-Chasing Temple. The sect leaders of these three Tao Palace forces were all captured by Sakyamuni. And after Indra used thunderous methods to take down these three Tao Palace level forces, it shook the entire Xian Mi heavenly domain. There was an unwritten rule between the Tao Palace factions, which stated that they were not allowed to attack each other's territories and start a war. After all, Tao Palace forces were the symbol of every precept domain. They had deep foundations, and once a war broke out, the impact would be terrifying. It would implicate many other small and medium-sized forces. Once a Tao Palace faction started a war by any means necessary, the other Tao Palace factions would join forces to suppress them. Originally, the Scarlet Mountain Manor, Falling Star Mountain Manor, Sun-Chasing Temple, and Void Palace had formed an alliance when the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect started the war. But what was even more frightening was that the new sect master of the Ten Ultimate Yin Corps sect, Sakyamuni, was terrifyingly powerful, far surpassing the sect masters of the other four Tao Palaces. Of the sect lords of the four great Tao Palaces, only the sect lord of the Scarlet Mountain Villa managed to escape. The other three sect lords were severely injured and captured alive. Other than that, what was even more shocking was that the Ten Extremes Yin Corps sect had used something called the Dead Man's Flower. When the Dead Man flower was planted in a cultivator's body, it could instantly absorb a cultivator's lifetime of cultivation and bloom into a bright flower. Cultivators of the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect could advance quickly by absorbing the Dead Man flower. Because of this heaven-defying item, the cultivators of the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect were generally stronger than the other Tao Palaces. Even if the other four Tao Palaces joined forces, they would still be crushed by the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect. What angered everyone even more was that after the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect took over Falling Star Mountain, Void Palace, and Sun-Chasing Temple, the cultivators of the three great factions were all used to plant the Dead Man's Flower. Almost no one survived. After the Scarlet Mountain Villa's sect lord's army was defeated, he fled back to the Scarlet Mountain Villa and activated the sect protecting array. He also told the Eastern sect master, Tan Xinghua, about what had happened in the host region. Tan Xinghua was the Eastern sect master and also the overlord of the host region. Now that such a big thing had happened in the host region, Tan Xinghua naturally couldn't sit still. He led an elite team into the host region and headed to the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect. When the various factions of the host region saw Tan Xinghua personally take action, they were all filled with hope. They felt that if Tan Xinghua took action, Sakyamuni of the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect would be defeated without a doubt. Even the sect lord of the Scarlet Mountain Villa was filled with anticipation. Like everyone else, he thought that no matter how strong Sakyamuni was, he would still be defeated without a doubt if Tan Xinghua took action. After all, Tan Xinghua was a sky-reaching middle-stage expert. His strength was unparalleled and far surpassed all the cultivators in the host region. However, the battle between Tan Xinghua and Sakyamuni shocked everyone. Sakyamuni only used 3 moves to severely injure Tan Xinghua. His body was destroyed, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. After that, he was taken away by Sakyamuni. Although no one really saw Tan Xinghua fall, everyone knew that Tan Xinghua would definitely die if he fell into Sakyamuni's hands. It's Sakyamuni. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He found it unbelievable. How did the NTI Shiva's strength increase so quickly? Was it because of the Dead Man's Flower? Zhuowen's face turned ugly. When he found the Dead Man's Flower in the underground space of the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect, he knew that the Dead Man's Flower would definitely be a disaster in the future. Therefore, he destroyed all the Dead Man's Flowers in the underground space. However, he left a Dead Man's Flower and later gave it to the Pil Dao Immortal Alliance's leader, Ji Wuming. However, it was precisely because of this that Ji Wuming spent a lot of money to hire the Blood Prison assassins to kill him. Later, he found out that the Dead Man's Flower was researched by Ji Wuming. This guy was in cahoots with the Ten Extremities Yin Corps sect. After knowing that Zhuowen had destroyed most of the Dead Man's Flowers, Ji Wuming killed Zhuowen to silence him. Zhuoan was very sure that he had destroyed all the dead man's flowers in the 10 extremities yin corpse sect. However, the dead man's flowers had appeared in the 10 extremities yin corpse sect. He knew that all of this had something to do with Ji Wuming. After all, he had left a dead man's flower for Ji Wuming to appraise and expose the evil deeds of the yin corpse sect of the 10 extremities. Now, it seemed that Ji Wuming had returned the dead man's flower to the 10 extremities yin corpse sect. Zhuoan was a little annoyed. When he had returned to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance, he had killed Ji Wuming. He had not thought about the dead man's flower that he had given to Ji Wuming. If he had thought about it, he would have asked Ji Wuming about the whereabouts of the dead man's flower. At that time, he could have followed the clues to the 10 extremities yin corpse sect and completely destroyed the dead man's flower. Then, this series of troublesome things would not have happened. Fellow Daoist, are you okay? The middle-aged man saw that Zhuoan had been in a daze and could not help but remind him. Zhuoan came back to his senses. He cupped his fists at the middle-aged man and said, "Thank you for telling me so much, fellow Daoist. I still have one question." Chapter 34:20. Sealed Sect Master Tan has fallen. Did the other 3 sect masters not take any action? The NTI Shiva's actions have disrupted the balance between the various precept regions. They must be punished. Zhuoan said in a low voice. Sigh. The NTI Shiva is too powerful. He defeated Sect Master Tan in 3 moves. He is suspected to be a late-stage Tongtian master. The other 3 sect masters are hesitating. Moreover, that Sakura has already said that he was originally a cultivator from the host region and would only target the host region. He wouldn't touch the other Dao regions. That's why the 3 Dao masters haven't made a move until now. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with anger. He was very dissatisfied with the 3 sect masters' actions. Zhuoan's expression was not good. The 4 sect masters were supposed to be on the same side. Now that Tan Xinghua had fallen, the Eastern Precept region had been disrupted by the 10 Ultimate Yin Corpse sect, and they had spread evil things like the dead flower. If the 10 Ultimate Yin Corpse sect continued to develop, it would definitely threaten the other Precept regions. As for the promise made by Sakyamuni, Zhuoan felt that it was no different from a fart. Although Zhuoan despised the actions of the 3 sect masters, he did not intend to look for them. His identity was very sensitive now. If he was exposed, it would be very troublesome. Now that he had heard about the situation in the host region, Zhuoan was very worried that Rika would be involved. Therefore, he only wanted to rush back to the host region as soon as possible. Thank you, my friend. Zhuoan cupped his hands and thanked the middle-aged man. Then, he hurried toward the teleportation array of the Eastern Cosmic Camp. When Zhuoan arrived at the teleportation array to the host region, he found that the teleportation array to the Eastern Precept region had been blocked. Why did you close the teleportation array to the host region? Our sect is still in the host region. It is being invaded by the 10 Ultimate Yin Corpse sect. We have to rush back to help. Yes. Why did you close the teleportation array? You have no right. The Eastern Cosmic Camp belongs to Sect Master Tan, not you. Open the teleportation array and let us go. Many cultivators had gathered at the teleportation array. These cultivators had heard about what had happened in the host region and wanted to return to their respective sects. After all, in the sect, there were their senior and junior brothers, relatives, masters, disciples, and other close people. How could they sit still when something so big happened in the host region? All of them requested to return. The 3 cultivators guarding the teleportation formation all had bitter expressions on their faces. They hurriedly consoled them, "Everyone, please calm down. This is an order from the 3 Dao Lords. No one is allowed to leave the camp. After all, the alien race's army could still invade." The Eastern Space Camp is a very important strategic location. It can't be left empty. The explanation of the 3 cultivators immediately ignited the anger of the crowd. F***CK. Our brothers and sisters and our families are all in the host region. You're stopping us from going back, and you're telling us to stay here and guard against the invaders. How dare you say something like that? I don't care about the non-human army. My sect is in deep trouble, and you want me to continue guarding here? F***ck your sister. Do you really want me to curse your ancestors? Everyone's anger was ignited. Some of them even unleashed their powerful auras, wanting to attack and push the 3 cultivators guarding the teleportation formation away. Although the 3 cultivators were not weak, there were simply too many cultivators gathered outside the teleportation array. There was no lack of powerful cultivators among them. The 3 cultivators were quickly defeated and left the teleportation array with their heads and faces covered in dirt. This teleportation formation is sealed by a sealing force. Who's the formation Dao Master here? Break the sealing force on this teleportation formation. The crowd rushed to the teleportation formation but was quickly blocked by a sealing force. Everyone's expression was unpleasant. Among them, there were a few cultivators who were proficient in formations. After these cultivators observed the sealing force, their expressions turned ugly. This was because they realized that the sealing force was at the Heaven Ascension level. They had no ability to break it at all. Damn it! It must be a Heaven Ascension level formation Dao Master sent by the other Dao Lords to set up this sealing force around the teleportation formation. Damn it! The crowd was depressed. With the teleportation formation sealed, their chances of leaving the Eastern Space Camp and heading to the Eastern Dao Lord region were slim. Who allowed you to gather here? All of you, disperse. Suddenly, a thunderous voice rang out and attracted everyone's attention. A figure swept over from the northern space camp near the eastern space camp and appeared above the crowd in an instant. It was a burly middle-aged man in a light yellow robe. His eyes were filled with arrogance. It's the northern Dao Lord, Yarrow Genuan. The crowd immediately noticed the middle-aged man and recognized his identity. Their eyes were filled with fear. Zhuoan, who was mixed in the crowd, looked at Yarrow Genuan with a gloomy expression. He could sense a murderous intent from Yarrow Genuan. I've already told the other 2 Dao Lords that we'll take care of the matters in the Eastern Dao Lord region. However, you gathered here to cause trouble. Are you looking down on us Dao Lords? Now, return to your positions. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude, Yarrow Genuan said coldly. The aura of a Heaven Ascension Master in the intermediate stage suddenly erupted and spread around the teleportation formation like a tide. The cultivators who had gathered around the teleportation formation felt Yarrow Genuan's terrifying aura and retreated. He was an elite in the intermediate stage of the Heaven Ascension Master and a Dao Lord. He was not someone they could go against. To put it bluntly, in Yarrow Genuan's eyes, they were just ants. Dao Lord Yarrow, you keep saying that you'll take care of the matters in the Eastern Dao Lord region. However, you haven't done anything. Now, you're even stopping us from leaving the Eastern Space Camp. Is there any logic in this? Moreover, we're free to enter the Eastern Space Camp. Now that you're restricting our freedom, aren't you violating the rules of the Space Camp? Someone in the crowd retorted. The foreign tribe army may attack at any time. If you leave and the foreign tribe army invades, the entire space camp may be destroyed. Who's going to take responsibility for this? I'm the Dao Lord. Of course, I have to take responsibility for the space camp, Yarrow Genuan said coldly. Haha. When the foreign tribe army invaded, you didn't do much either. Instead, you wanted to surrender. If it wasn't for Master Zhuo, the space camp would have been destroyed. It's all because of Master Zhuo that the space camp was saved. It has nothing to do with you. If Master Zhuo or Dao Lord Tan didn't allow us to leave, we would have obeyed. However, you don't have the right to do so. Chapter 34:21. Yarrow Genuan's fury. Yarrow Genuan's face darkened. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he looked at the cultivator who had just spoken. Whoosh! Yarrow Genuan attacked decisively. Violent energy swept out and set off a terrifying storm. Many of the cultivators below were swept away by the storm and fell to the ground. Some of the cultivators were even worse off. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and their faces were pale. The cultivator who had mocked Yarrow Genuine was pale. Just as he was about to retreat, his neck was restrained by an energy. Then, his feet left the ground and he was lifted into the air. He floated in front of Yarrow Genuine. "You've got guts, how dare you mock me? I am the Dowlord of the North. You're just a soldier of the Starry Sky Camp. How dare you offend me? What a joke," Yarrow Genuine said darkly. The cultivator's face was terrifyingly pale. His body was trembling, but he was unyielding. He said hoarsely, "Am I wrong? Isn't Master Zhua the one who defeated the alien army? What did you do back then? The alien army has retreated into the primitive celestial domain. They won't be able to make a comeback in a short time. Our sect is in deep trouble, but you're stopping us from going back to help our sect. Aren't your intentions sinister? Or rather, you're in cahoots with Sakyamuni from the host domain." Yarrow Genuine's face turned even uglier. He was furious. "Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish." As he spoke, energy surged in Yarrow Genuine's hand. The cultivator in Yarrow Genuine's hand looked like he was about to die. He knew that he couldn't survive in the hands of a mid-stage Dowlord like Yarrow Genuine. The cultivators below couldn't bear to see him die. They were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. Yarrow Genuine was too powerful. Moreover, he was a Dowlord. Even if he killed a cultivator, he only needed to pin a crime on him and he wouldn't be punished. Bang! Just as Yarrow Genuine was about to kill the cultivator, a powerful energy swept out from the crowd and hit Yarrow Genuine's arm with great precision. Yarrow Genuine was not prepared at all his attention was focused on the cultivator in his hand. Poochie! The energy was as sharp as a blade as it landed on Yarrow Genuine's arm. Following that, a muffled poochie sound was heard. Yarrow Genuine's arm exploded into a bloody mist. His right hand was actually blasted into fine powder by the energy. Blood splattered everywhere. As soon as Yarrow Genuine's arm exploded, the cultivator whose neck was in Yarrow Genuine's grasp immediately retreated at top speed. At the same time, the cultivator who was out of danger was also dumbfounded. He was prepared to die, but who would have thought that Yarrow Genuine's right hand would suddenly explode? However, he quickly realized that there must be some expert secretly helping him. All the cultivators present were dumbfounded. They didn't expect something like this to happen. It was too unexpected. As a Dowlord, Yarrow Genuine's strength stood at the peak of the astral battlefield. In the space camp, no one was a match for Yarrow Genuine, but now, the powerful Yarrow Genuine's right arm had exploded so easily. This was probably something only an expert of the same level could do. At the thought of this, everyone's gaze shot to the back of the crowd at the same time. There was a fierce-looking middle-aged man. Many people saw clearly that the energy that exploded Yarrow Genuine's right arm was unleashed by this middle-aged man. Who is this person? I don't think I've seen this person before. I'm not sure either. He's never seen this person before either. However, this person is very powerful. He actually injured Dowlord Yarrow. This isn't something an ordinary cultivator can do. The crowd discussed fervently. They all subconsciously retreated far away from Zhuoan. Although Zhuoan injured Yarrow Genuine, they all knew that it was a sneak attack. Now that this person was exposed, he would have to suffer Yarrow Genuine's wrath. This was going to be bad. Although they were very resentful towards Yarrow Genuine for stopping them from leaving the Eastern Space Camp, they were just complaining. However, they didn't dare to attack Yarrow Genuine, who was a highly respected Dowlord. This was a place where people would die. They wouldn't really offend Yarrow Genuine. Now, this middle-aged man attacked without saying anything and even injured Yarrow Genuine. This guy was simply courting death. They didn't dare to get too close to this guy in case they were implicated. The cultivator who escaped from Yarrow Genuine's attack also noticed Zhuoan. He cupped his hands towards Zhuoan to express his gratitude, but he didn't have any intention of getting closer. His eyes were filled with fear. He had just walked between life and death and had a lingering fear in his heart. He didn't dare to offend Yarrow Genuine again. Zhuoan naturally noticed the crowd's sudden separation and guessed what they were thinking. He didn't care too much and raised his head to look at Yarrow Genuine. At this moment, Yarrow Jinyuan's gaze also landed on Zhuowen. His face was extremely gloomy and his expression was terrifyingly cold. He suppressed the anger in his chest and looked at Zhuowen as if he was looking at a dead man. "How dare you sneak an attack on me?" Yarrow Jinyuan took a deep breath and said in a cold voice that was filled with killing intent. Zhuowen's expression was calm as he said, "Dao Lord Yarrow, you better not slander me like this. When did I sneak an attack on you? I was only trying to save that fellow cultivator. Speaking of which, you're the one who's been bullying us. We're free to enter and leave the space camp. Now you're restricting our freedom. What's the meaning of this? Moreover, this is the Eastern Space Camp and you're only the Dao Lord of the Northern Space Camp. If Dao Lord Tan were to give us orders, we'd accept it wholeheartedly. But who do you think you are? You've crossed the line by ordering us around." Zhuowen's voice was very calm but his words were filled with hostility. Every word he said was filled with sarcasm towards Yarrow Jinyuan. Yarrow Jinyuan couldn't stand Zhuowen's sarcasm. He said coldly, "Brother Tan and I are like brothers. Now that he's no longer around, I naturally have the responsibility to maintain order in the Eastern Space Camp. I don't want a troublemaker like you to cause chaos in the camp." Like brothers? If that's the case, then Dao Lord Yarrow should go to the host region to find Sakyamuni and take revenge for Dao Lord Tan. What's the point of talking here? Are you trying to show off your ignorance and cowardice? Zhuowen laughed coldly. "How dare you offend me again and again? You're courting death." Yarrow Jinyuan couldn't take it anymore. Every word Zhuowen said was like a sharp sword that stabbed into his heart. He was speechless. In the end, he chose to use violence to suppress Zhuowen. He wanted to kill Zhuowen directly. Yarrow Jinyuan was very confident in himself. This cultivator who appeared out of nowhere was quite strong. However, he only managed to break one of Yarrow Jinyuan's arms by sneaking an attack. Chapter 3422.asa Footpad. At this moment, Yarrow Jinyuan made his move. With a flip of his hand, he blasted out a palm strike. Terrifying energy exploded, as if the nine heavens' profound thunder had descended upon the world. The continuous explosion was terrifying. The moment Yarrow Jinyuan made his move, the momentum was so great that all living beings in the star battlefield could feel it. The two Dao Masters, LV Yeliang and Mai Zian, who were originally in charge of the Western Cosmic Campsite, were also awakened. The two of them walked out of their seclusion and looked towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. Over at the Cosmic Campsite, a terrifying energy appeared in the sky. It had the power to destroy the world and swept over. It was abnormally terrifying and eye-catching. Is this Yarrow Jinyuan's aura? Is he crazy? Why is he attacking the Eastern Cosmic Campsite? Is he going to destroy the Eastern Cosmic Campsite? The Western Dao Master, LV Yeliang, looked gloomy. He took a step forward and rushed towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. What is Yarrow Jinyuan doing? The Southern Dao Master, Mai Zian, couldn't hold back either. He also took a step forward and rushed towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. Not only LV Yeliang and Mai Zian, but the other cultivators in the Cosmic Campsite were also awakened. They all gathered towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite, wanting to see what was going on in the Eastern Cosmic Campsite that caused such a terrifying energy fluctuation. As the crowd gathered towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite, Yarrow Jinyuan floated in mid-air like a god or a demon. His remaining left hand had already struck out. The powerful energy condensed into a golden palm the size of a mountain. It whistled through the air and landed on top of Zhuowen's head. The cultivators near Zhuowen had already retreated far away. They looked at the golden palm in shock. They knew that Yarrow Jinyuan was really angry. He didn't hold back in this attack. Its power was too terrifying. It felt as if the entire world was going to collapse because of this palm. Especially the cultivators who had complained about Yarrow Jinyuan before. After feeling the terror of this attack, their faces turned pale. They swore to themselves that they would never speak carelessly in front of Yarrow Jinyuan again. In the hands of such a powerhouse, they wouldn't even be able to withstand a slap. Boom! The golden palm was very fast and it landed on Zhuowen's body in an instant. The blazing golden light instantly engulfed Zhuowen's figure, making it impossible for anyone to see him. On the ground where Zhuowen was standing, terrifying cracks began to appear. Then, it began to collapse, forming a deep and terrifying pit. It was pitch black, like an endless abyss. This fellow Daoist is dead for sure. It was fine if he just moved his mouth, but he might not even be killed. He's got some guts, actually daring to make a move. Now that his angered Daoist Yao, this is the only outcome. The surrounding cultivators shook their heads and sighed. When they saw Zhuowen being killed just like that, they felt a little sad for him. After unleashing that palm strike, Yao Genuan slowly retracted his right hand and placed it behind his back. His eyes shone with arrogance as he looked around. When he saw that everyone was as silent as cicadas in winter, their eyes filled with fear and reverence, he felt very satisfied. It seemed that the effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey was not bad. In the future, the cultivators of the eastern camp would no longer dare to oppose him. Although his right arm was broken and he was angry, he felt that killing the cultivator who offended him was too easy on him. However, he was also quite pleased to receive such an obvious effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey. This is your full strength attack. The so-called Daoist master's strength seems to be a little weak. Just as everyone was discussing and Yao Genuan was feeling proud, a cold and ruthless voice came from the deep pit below. The sound of footsteps was accompanied by the sound of footsteps. The footsteps were very regular, but when they stopped by everyone's ears, they had a different kind of magic, causing them to involuntarily stop talking and freeze in place. The expression on Yao Genuan's face instantly froze. His eyes almost popped out as he stared at the pit below. There, a figure slowly appeared. He was very familiar with this figure. It was the middle-aged man he thought was dead for sure. When Zhuowen completely appeared in front of everyone, the clothes on his upper body had been completely torn, revealing his strong body. Moreover, his body exuded a glazed brilliance that constantly flowed around him, as if he was forged from the most exquisite jade in the world. Everyone was in disbelief. They had indeed seen Yao Jinyuan's full strength attack smash down on Zhuowen's body with the golden palm. However, there was no wound on Zhuowen's body and not even a drop of blood flowed out. How terrifying was this guy's physical body? It actually withstood the full strength attack of a Daoist master in the middle stage. It was really unbelievable. Yao Genuan was also shocked, especially when he saw Zhuowen's perfect physical body. He felt his hair stand on end and felt a sense of panic. Courtesy demands reciprocity. You had a good time beating me up just now. Now it's my turn. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a wicked smile. His right foot suddenly kicked off and he shot out like an arrow from a bow. Yao Jinyuan's expression changed drastically. He immediately took out his life artifact and protected his chest. This was a heart-protecting mirror, forged from bronze and flowing with a golden luster. It was very extraordinary. Zhuowen's fist smashed into the heart-protecting mirror, and a terrifying power exploded out. Cracks actually appeared on the heart-protecting mirror, and then it shattered into pieces, shattering into countless pieces. Then, Zhuowen's fist was like a rainbow that pierced through the shattered heart-protecting mirror and ruthlessly smashed into Yao Jinyuan's chest. Poochie. Blood splattered. Yao Jinyuan's eyes widened and his body trembled as he looked at his chest in disbelief. He saw that Zhuowen's fist had penetrated his chest, and blood spurted out from his back, splashing into the air and sprinkling down, turning into a rain of blood. And his heart, under the terrifying force of the fist, had already exploded into pieces. Cough. Yao Genuan coughed out a mouthful of blood. He stared at Zhuowen. Until now, he still couldn't believe that he had been defeated just like that. In just one move, he was beaten half to death and was now on the verge of death. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He suddenly shook his right fist, and Yao Genuan grunted and kept retreating, escaping from Zhuowen's fist. But the moment he escaped from Zhuowen's fist, his chest was ruthlessly trampled by a foot. His sternum caved in, and he fell to the ground like a meteor, smashing a deep human-shaped hole in the ground. Yarrow Genuine tried to stretch out his hands to support his body, trying to stand up. Unfortunately, he had no chance. Zhuowen landed on the ground, and his feet were on his chest, using him as a cushion to stand. At this moment, all the surrounding cultivators were dumbfounded. Looking at this extremely dramatic scene, they wondered if they were hallucinating. It was unbelievable that Yarrow Genuine had been defeated so easily. Chapter 34:23. Ruthless R. Yarrow Genuine roared angrily. He felt extremely humiliated. He was the Northern Daoist Master, one of the highest commanders in the Star Wars battlefield. He had a noble status, but now he was being stepped on by Zhuowen in front of everyone. His posture was too ugly. Divine light flashed on Yarrow Genuine's body. He was about to explode, but he was suppressed by Zhuowen and could not move. "Do you want to die so badly?" Zhuowen's foot stomped down on Yarrow Genuine's mouth. A powerful force exploded out, and Yarrow Genuine's jaw was dislocated. His flesh and blood were mangled, and his voice became indistinct. He couldn't make the correct sound. "It's finally quiet." Zhuowen clapped his hands. The surrounding cultivators were all dumbfounded. They cursed in their hearts, "This guy is too fierce." Not only did he step on Yarrow Genuine like a stepping stone, he even stepped on his mouth because he thought he was noisy. This is a little too horrible to look at. Yarrow Genuine was terrified. His jaw was badly mangled, and the intense pain almost made Yarrow Genuine faint. He did not dare to scream anymore. The guy in front of him did not play by the rules. He was so unscrupulous. He was really afraid that if he angered this guy, he would attack fiercely and kill him. Whoosh whoosh. At that moment, two streams of light suddenly appeared above the eastern starry sky campsite. A powerful aura filled the entire eastern starry sky campsite. Everyone looked up and saw two dignified men. One of the men was wearing a long yellow robe. He had a high-nose bridge and was quite handsome. The man in the yellow robe was the Western Daoist Master, LV Yelyang. The other man in the silver robe was the Southern Daoist Master, misty. The arrival of the two Daoist Masters caused an uproar. All the cultivators were in an uproar. In addition, above the other three camps, there were many figures flashing and flying over. They were like a swarm of locusts, densely packed together. They knew that the terrifying battle here had attracted the attention of the cultivators in the other starry sky campsites. misty and LV Yelyang hovered above the eastern space camp. They immediately saw the huge crater below them and the terrifying energy waves that had yet to dissipate. It wasn't hard to imagine how terrifying the battle he had just experienced was. Then, the two of them finally saw Yarrow Genuine. When they saw Yarrow Genuine lying on his back in the pit, his chin was almost broken and he couldn't even speak clearly. A figure stepped on Yarrow Genuine's chest, using him as a footrest. The two of them fell silent, and then they were shocked. That guy was actually using the Dao Lord of the Northern Daolord's body as a stepping stone. As for Zhuowen, under misty and LV Yelyang's dumbfounded gazes, he used his feet to rub Yarrow Genuine's chest, causing Yarrow Genuine to wail in pain. Then, Zhuowen straightened his body, straightened his back, and put his hands behind his back. He pretended to look deep as he looked at misty and LV Yelyang. It was as if he was invincible and lonely in the world. When Yarrow Genuine saw Zhuowen stepping on him to show off, he was so angry that he almost jumped up and fought with his life. He wanted to slap Zhuowen to the ground and let him know why the flowers were so red. However, he didn't dare and could only fantasize in his heart. Because Zhuowen had already shown him why the flowers were so red. If he dared to move, there was no telling which part of his body would bloom again. Who is this guy? misty was stunned. He was completely frightened by Yarrow Genuine's miserable state. He looked at Zhuowen with fear. Especially Zhuowen's demeanor of an expert. misty and LV Yelyang were afraid of attacking him. They cursed him in their hearts. "I don't know this guy, but I guess he was the one who fought with Brother Yarrow just now. This guy is not simple. Look, He is intact and has no injuries at all. This is incredible, LV Yeliang said with fear in his voice. Mai Xian nodded. He also found it incredible. Yarrow Genuan was an expert in the middle stage of the Sky-Reaching Lord. He was one of the 4 Path Lords on the starry battlefield. He had a high status and great strength. In the Xian Mi Heavenly Territory, there was no one who could be a match for Yarrow Genuan. No one in the Xian Mi Heavenly Territory could threaten Yarrow Genuan unless it was a real expert from the Sky-Reaching place. But now, Yarrow Genuan had been beaten to a pulp by this show-off in front of them. Was this guy really an expert from the Sky-Reaching place? Thinking of this, the two of them were even more afraid. Mai Xian cupped his hands to Zhuowen and said, "Fellow Taoist, which force of the Sky-Reaching place do you come from?" Zhuowen, who had just finished showing off, wanted to continue to pretend to be profound. But when he heard Mai Xian's question, he was dumbfounded. He hadn't even been to the Sky-Reaching place. He didn't even know which forces were in the Sky-Reaching place, let alone which force he belonged to. But Zhuowen knew that he had to finish showing off, even if he had to hold back his tears. His gaze turned cold and deep as he coldly scrutinized Mai Xian and LV Yeliang. When the two of them felt their scalps tingle, he said indifferently, "You are not qualified for me to tell you who I am. Today, I came down from the Sky-Reaching place and wanted to go to the host region to have a look. But I found that the transmitting formation was sealed. That's not all. This idiot came and made a big fuss. He even threatened us and threatened to kill me. He said I was like an ant. I've always had a good temper, but this idiot insulted me. I couldn't stand it, so I taught him a lesson and let him broaden his horizons." Yarrow Genuan, who was being stepped on by Zhuowen, heard Zhuowen call him an idiot. He rolled his eyes to protest against Zhuowen's impudence. Of course, Yarrow Genuan's petty actions were noticed by Zhuowen. He also made Yarrow Genuan pay a small price. He trampled on Yarrow Genuan's eyes. Yarrow Genuan screamed in pain and didn't dare to open his eyes again. Seeing Yarrow Genuan's miserable state, LV Yeliang and Mai Xian's eyelids twitched. It was too humiliating for a Taoist master to be beaten like this. Of course, this made Mai Xian and LV Yeliang even more afraid of Zhuowen. Their strength was almost the same as Yarrow Genuan's. Now that Yarrow Genuan was in such a miserable state, even if they attacked, they might not end up well. So they didn't dare to attack. Moreover, the two of them had long regarded Zhuowen as an expert who had come down from the Sky-Reaching place. He must have a strong background. They couldn't afford to offend him. If they offended him, they would be finished. After Zhuowen taught Yarrow Genuan a lesson in front of everyone, the latter immediately became obedient and played dead. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.